Crossover. Oh, killer crossover.
Just crossover.
It just crossed him over. Nastily.
Another victim to the crossovers. Cross him up and sit him down.
It's time for the crossover with Matt Jake.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Jake.
I forgot to plug in my headphones. I'm kind of mad at what.
You forgot? Or you were just yapping the whole time?
Yapping. I was yapping. I was yapping about unlikable Chicago superstars.
Yap Town population you, bro.
Yeah, Mike is looking through my notes today. There aren't a ton. We're working through them.
What do you write, Shafe?
We've got some notes on Rob Aurich, which features a lot of just numbers.
So those are snaps where
Okay.
the defensive line was lined up directly over the nose tackle.
Okay.
Because I was trying to find what percentage of the time was Nebraska in a 4-down front, but you can't find that on PFF, very frustratingly. So I just decided to, out of the 787 snaps, how many times were they directly over the nose tackle?
So then we've got a Max Olson college football spending article. It looked like he's got some notes on that. We've got some notes on Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy.
There's
some stuff scribbled out here.
There's a KOC quote from like 2 years ago that is pretty hypocritical that I want to use. And then that's the rest of the show I have to
young
take notes on.
quarterbacks don't fail. Organizations fail. Young quarterbacks. That quote.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of page one today.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's really not that much.
There's not that much on there
Okay.
right now.
All right. Yeah,
There was a lot of, I wasted way too much time on page one trying to find things that I could not find. So I have concepts of a show. I just have to write everything down later.
Oh, good thing the show started.
Would you like me to start asking you questions now, or should I save it for later in the crossover?
You can start asking me questions now.
Okay. Question number one.
Interrogation is on.
What is the biggest brand in the NHL?
Oh my God, the Maple Leafs.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Great question.
Relative to other North American sports teams that are professional and do not have NIL money, where would they rank? So we were talking about this, and we had some version of the Cowboys, Yankees, Lakers as the top three biggest professional sports brands.
Yeah, sure.
And then we
great.
were trying to come up with four, and then Happer talked me into the Dodgers.
We got we got a bunch of stuff.
So then after that, we were like, okay, what's the biggest NHL brand? And we were trying to figure out what that would be. And then Happer said Toronto and pointed out that the largest city in Canada,
all the
hugely
Canadians.
popular brand.
Yeah.
But where would that rank against like other sports brands? A notable logo, a historic franchise, not a lot of postseason success, famously.
15 to 20.
Okay.
15 to 20. Because I think you have to.
A handful of NFL teams, a couple of NBA teams.
You
maybe
have
another
to recognize
baseball team.
that is like an entire country's biggest entity. Right. And Canada's massive.
Is a Maple Leaf hat akin to a Yankees hat?
I would say so. I would say so.
In the United States?
That's interesting.
I would say so. I would say that if you're wearing a Maple Leaf hat, it'd be pretty close to wearing that or a Cowboy hat or a Laker hat or something attuned to that. Like, a big point.
Lakers people don't wear hats.
I had a Lakers hat and I wore it for a while.
Lakers gear on the golf course.
Yeah, that's insane.
So many people have Lakers golf towels or Kobe head covers.
I would say that
is weird.
As an adult,
I've seen probably 2 a month all year here in Omaha. As
an adult, I would say that that's probably correct. Somebody who's in their 20s, if you go to like a frat party or if you go to a bar in Lincoln, that is occupied by mostly 20-year-olds, that's where you will see the most Laker gear, because Laker gear is still so hot.
I don't get it.
Still hot. It's just, and it's like, and they got so many historical players at this point too. Like you can wear a Shaq jersey, you can wear a Kobe jersey, you can wear some guys love wearing like Alex Caruso jerseys or like, Austin Reeves jerseys or whatever, or anything like that.
What do you think, like if you see someone wearing an Alex Caruso jersey, what is the immediate thought that you have on their person?
That guy's a goon, that guy's such a goon.
What's a goon?
Like he's a kind of a clown, but a slightly cooler clown, would probably be the best way to describe it. Like he's a goober. He's a silly guy. You know, he's a non-serious human. You know, to spend your money to
see, like I think if you got a Caruso jersey,
I think you're trying to make like a statement.
Correct. You are trying to say that you know ball, but actually you don't.
I also do think there's just like a white guy element to it. Like that's the statement. Like I'm a white guy, and here's a white guy who people know who plays for this notable team.
It's not just that he's a white guy; he's a white guy that plays hard-nosed defense that annoys.
Yeah, and also too, he's a white guy in the Lakers. Like if Caruso was originally like his first team was like
racist to like Alex Caruso.
I mean, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if Alex Caruso was white, if he started as white guy on the Hornets, you know, with as many people be wearing
whatever isn't going to have people
Knipple. I have not seen one Knipple jersey.
Have you seen a Cooper Flag jersey?
I have, yes. I have seen Cooper Flag.
I saw a Cooper Flag jersey. What does that tell you?
I don't know what that tells me. Because Cooper Flag is an actual stud. Like he could be the best player in the NBA at some point in his career.
It's a Duke fan wearing a Cooper Flag jersey?
I don't think that's wrong to assume. But I think Cooper could be one of the 3 best players in the NBA at some point in his career. Alex Caruso will never.
What would you think if you
will never.
What would you think if you saw someone wearing a Kyrie Irving jersy?
I have a Kyrie Irving jersey. I used to wear a Kyrie Irving jersey. Now, might I add,
anyone was going to work at 1620 and wear a Kyrie Irving jersey, it would be you.
Might I add, my Kyrie Irving jersey was with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay,
doesn't matter.
No, he went a little bit haywire after the Cavs.
Yep.
He was doing the incense stuff when it was he was a Brooklyn Net. He was pretty normal on the Cavs.
When he was on the Cavs too.
Yeah, that was true. He did, but the Earth is flat stuff did start. Yeah. That might have started pre-LeBron, I believe.
I think he's always thought the Earth was flat.
Does he still think the Earth is flat? Have we ever gotten an update on Kyrie?
So. Yeah, I don't know. Nobody's asked him recently.
I think we should, but he probably would just get very mad at you and say some philosophical thing, you know, and tell you that you're an idiot and then move on.
Okay, I have other questions.
Oh, yeah, continue.
How deep do your hand rankings go?
My what?
You apparently rank people based on how soft their hands are.
Yeah, not deep at all.
Okay.
Just the ones who are most notable.
What do you want your defensive coordinator's hands to feel like?
Like sandpaper. Like, but also very big, like a very big hand that also is very rough.
If Jared Goff came up, you wouldn't feel like he'd be a defensive. Like you didn't know Jared Goff.
I assume Jared Goff.
What if you had to do a thing where you just shook people's hands, you didn't know who it was, and you had to guess what their profession
I think that'd be awesome.
Could you guess?
That would be awesome.
Could I guess? No. Do I think it would be wildly entertaining? Absolutely. I imagine Jared Goff to have long fingers, but at the same time, pretty soft hands.
This is a free TikTok
pretty
idea.
Firm, but soft hands.
He has small hands.
Oh, does he have small hands? I have no idea. I have no idea.
He might have the smallest hands of any NFL quarterback.
No, Kenny Pickett still exists.
Are his smaller?
Oh, he's tiny baby hands.
I think Goff.
Joe Burrow has small hands as well. I think he has average human hands. Is Joe Burrow's thing.
I'd never heard about that. I know that Kenny Pickett and the other guy.
I didn't know Goff had small hands. Yeah. I've never really. That's not a QB lore thing that I knew.
Free idea for content creators: go to an NFL training camp.
Joe Burrow only 9 inches.
Wow. Yeah,
and Jared Goff 9 inches. They have the same.
Yeah. Okay,
and
I didn't know that
8.5. So you were correct.
I did not know that Jared Goff had notably small hands.
Ryan Tannehill 9 inches.
Really? Tannehill's a big guy, though. Tannehill's a tall dude.
Yeah,
being tall doesn't mean you have big hands.
He played wide receiver at Texas A&M.
And Reggie McNeil was the quarterback.
Texas A&M
under Mike Sherman.
Wide WR.
Look
Ryan
up the name Jaworski Lane.
Oh yeah, have you seen Jaworski Lane before?
No.
Oh, you're gonna love Jaworski Lane.
Now this is how I know you want to be a progressive show, but if you moved on from women throughout history to football players throughout history, and people just sent you random football players,
this is J Train.
Jaworski Lane.
No, it said what I'm watching now is Jaworski Lane, unleashing the J train.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was his nickname. I don't know that for a fact, but you'll get why they would call him the J Train in a moment.
Oh wow, he just bounces off people.
He makes Jerome Bettis.
What do you notice about him?
Well, I noticed that this footage is super grainy and old.
No, it's not that old.
He's built like a bowling ball.
Yep.
Where's number 11? Hot number.
Hot number. Okay.
Hot number.
He was he number 11 at A&M?
I don't remember him being 11. I thought he was 40 something.
I feel like he was in the 20s. I don't know.
Look.
It was Jaworski Lane and Mike Goodson.
Or maybe that might be his kick return number. Maybe he's got a different number on kick return. I don't know.
I don't think that's
No. He's got 11. He's number 11.
Number 11.
What am I supposed to notice about him? He's a bowling ball. He's a bulldog.
Large.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
He just people can't tackle him.
Well, okay. What
his
about
pad level is phenomenal.
All right, go to Lendell White.
Oh, I love Lendell White.
All right, good.
I almost bought a Lendell White Tennessee Titans jersey.
That makes sense.
Like I thought that'd be a pretty dope because I love, I'm a part of the crowd that loves the niche jersey. So I thought Thunder and Lightning if I were to get
There's
Lendell.
a Jaworski Lane Jr.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Right now, like a recruit?
Yeah, I think he's committed to Arkansas.
Whoa. That is exciting.
He might be my new favorite player on Ryan Silverfield's
he's the class of 2026.
Wow. So he's in there.
He's a baseball player.
Whoa.
I like how we found that out at the same time.
At Arkansas?
Yeah.
Dave Van Horn?
I just saw Arkansas and I assumed football, but he's got a perfect game profile.
He does.
He wasn't drafted into the MLB.
Maybe he will be the person who helps Dave Van Horn finally win a College World Series.
Wow.
Type of athlete.
Imagine you were in the dugout and Arkansas is about to win the College World Series, and to your left is Jaworski Lane.
And then I'm about to go interview Jaworski Lane Jr.
Yeah. And Dave Van Horn after he wins a College World Series.
And potentially Jaworski Lane as he joins in on the celebration.
This is amazing.
That's a great.
I don't think I've ever wanted anything more for you.
It's a personal dream of mine.
Here's an article from sportingnews.com. Why Jaworski Lane Jr. wasn't drafted into MLB despite son of NFL running back having immense physical tools.
What was the answer? Why wasn't he?
One of the most intriguingly recognizable names of the 2026 MLB draft pool was Jaworski Lane Jr. That's because his dad was a bruising collegiate running back who went to play in the NFL.
He was.
Apparently, he did not play well at the end of his high school career, and he was very much committed to Arkansas.
He didn't get drafted because
he wasn't good enough.
Yes.
No, I know, but this is just sporting news trying to get you guys to
sporting news.
You're trying to click. They're trying to get you and you to click on. Oh my God, Jaworski Lane!
They want someone to search Jaworski Lane and then get the traffic off of it. I see what they're doing.
Do you guys see this Creighton thing? All right, so
no, I never do.
They got a transfer
from Oakland
just now. Yeah, Brody Robinson, who he's 5'11", and he averaged 17.5 points a game and almost 7 assists last year, ranking top 10 nationally in assists.
Whoa.
You
know what that means?
What does it mean?
More minutes for Wesley Rosa.
It doesn't mean anything for Wesley Rosa.
It does too.
Doesn't mean anything for Wesley.
I can't believe you hate Wesley Rosa.
I can't believe you hate him.
Wesley
That's so
Rosa.
disrespectful of you. You don't even know him.
That'd be interesting.
By the way, Brody Robinson, what a just awesome,
on Brody?
He dropped 36 in a Horizon League tournament game.
That's just an awesome college point guard.
McMaster have your first child, and she won't let you name it Michael Hamilton or whatever.
Can we do Brody Robinson McMaster?
You could be
instead?
Brody Hamilton.
Brody? No, I would.
Brody McMaster.
Brody McMaster. I don't think would.
Yeah,
I don't think Brody McMaster would really roll off the tongue.
It seems pretty good to me.
Bo, maybe. Bo McMaster.
Bo McMaster?
Nah, not really. Uncle, but maybe if I had like a Grandpa Bo, that would make sense.
Caleb McMaster? You just name him after your division-winning quarterback?
Pete Crow McMaster.
Pete Crow?
No, Vinny Del Negro McMaster.
There's a good one. Vinny McMaster.
Vinny. Yeah. Vinny's a good one.
Vincent, but immediately everyone calls him Vinny for the rest of his life.
Kirk
and
Heinrich.
His closest friends call him Vin.
Kirk Heinrich McMaster. A pretty dope one.
Sorry.
You doing your Sky report on Brody Robinson?
I was just thinking about it. I was thinking about what they're gonna do.
I mean, the guard the guard battle
a
already.
fifth-year
Is
guy?
isn't
Yeah,
it?
an extra year.
He's one of the 5th-year
Isn't it kind of-
injunction guys.
Isn't kind of the guard battle a little bit hotly contested already
Yes.
at this point? You got Enos, Davis, Cottrell,
Well, I mean, I think I would
Swartz.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But it seems like the idea is this is your actual true point guard. And then you have like like BJ Davis is like the defensive, like kind of combo guy you could stick on anybody. Like he doesn't have to be your full-time point guard. Enos is the 2. And then,
Enos is definitely not your point guard.
So Davis backing up.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what? Green, McAndrew, Arunse?
And then Harmon learning from this guy.
I guess so. I guess so.
So it's probably what? Cottrell,
Rosa, don't forget
and
Rosa.
Swartz's. No, it'd be Cottrell and Austin probably have to duke it out for some minutes off the bench then, unless they.
Yeah, there's
they
a lot of
rotate
guys
them.
in there, and then
what
there's
happened to Bug?
Hudson? There's Bug.
There is Hudson Creer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he might be.
He might be what?
Well, he's listed as a guard, but I don't imagine you probably.
He's a wing.
Yeah, he'd probably be officially, but he's on the website last year. He was listed as a guard, and
He's a wing.
Okay, but he would play the 2 and 3, Connor, at times.
He very rarely played
calm
the 2
down, Blue
last
Jay
year.
overtime.
I'm sorry, I watched get.
Different team.
I have to, for my job, I have to keep up with.
And
this
he's
stuff.
like 6 foot.
I
He's
have
like
to keep
6
up
foot
with
eight.
I know. I'm just telling you that I agree. I'm in full agreement. He's not going to play guard this
I
year.
promise you, no one else is going to talk about Wesley Rosa as much as the morning
No,
show
what I'm
does.
telling you is that I don't think it matters. I don't know.
Okay.
What like. There's no 2, 3, whatever. Like
Yeah, it's fine.
he's-
Yeah.
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
What do you mean?
It's okay. Who?
That's-
Why did that?
that's
Why did
triggered.
why did a ding go off? Why did the timer go off?
I don't know. There was
my
a ding.
timer.
I didn't
Oh,
hear
okay.
any ding.
I heard it. I heard a ding. I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing things.
What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I found that I'm getting.
You hear dings when
I
you're
heard.
weird?
No.
What a
I-
wild transfer from you being upset at Happer to making up a ding.
I'm
noise.
not upset at Happer. I never got upset at
Way
Happer.
to
I
pivot.
feel like you just made up that ding noise.
To get out of
There
being
was a
upset at
ding.
Happer.
I heard a ding.
Jake, did you hear a ding?
I did not hear a ding.
Jake
Happer
is the
didn't hear a ding.
producer.
I'm obviously the last person we're going to ask if I heard something.
No, I'm the only one that has my ear out toward the environment right now, and I heard a ding.
Oh, there's a ding out there.
There might be.
You think cookies are done or something?
I would love for cookies to be
That'd be
done.
great.
Right
Some
now.
nice, fresh Otis Spunkmeyer cookies.
Otis Spunkmeyer.
Oh yeah.
That sounds like a dude who like.
That's a
What?
cookie brand.
Oh, okay. That sounds like an outside linebacker who played for like Florida in 2007.
What?
Otis Spunkmeyer.
I mean, it's just it's just Otis Spunkmeyer.
I think
the
it's a
cookies.
guy, right?
Yeah, he made the cookies.
I never heard.
I know about the brand, but I don't know who
He's
the guy
Orville
is.
Redenbacher of cookies.
Yeah, I gotta actually Google who Otis
You know who
Spunkmeyer
Orville
is.
Redenbacher is?
Did you know that the founder of Otis Spunkmeyer, is Ken Rawlings, not Otis Spunkmeyer?
Wait,
No. Is Otis Spunkmeyer not a person?
I don't believe so.
My life is ruined.
Ken Rawlings, the founder of Otis Spunkmeyer, opened the first fresh baked cookie store in Oakland in 1977. The first name of the business, Rawlings, took the suggestion of his 12-year-old daughter, who coined the name. By 1983, with his brother Bill, Rawlings had grown the company to less than 24 stores, and they just went on from there.
Stores?
This is a made up thing by a 12-year-old, Otis Spunkmeyer.
Wow.
is Ken Rawlings related to George Rawlings, who founded Rawlings Baseball?
I don't know.
When he said Ken Rawlings initially, the image in my head was Ken Jennings. And I was like, this does not compute.
That's a ding.
I heard
there
the
was
ding.
a ding.
I heard the ding that
What's
time.
that ding?
That's something out there. Has to be.
Somebody's phone sitting out there.
Someone
Maybe it's-
dinging?
Maybe it's your phone.
Someone make it louder
I
that
don't
time.
think it's my phone unless I get dings when Rob Doster tweets.
God, what? No,
Is that like the ring
you
camera
get
chime?
notifications for Rob Douster tweets?
I need to know what's
no, you
going
don't.
on in college basketball.
No, did he tweet about the guy from Oakland?
No,
Your
but
defense of a lot of your more insane activity is to say you need.
Why do you have so many notifications on your thing?
I have Field of 68. They're going live at
Are you looking at
11:15.
your? Are you looking at your calendar?
John Walker just tweeted he'll be on the show at 11 o'clock today,
Yeah.
and then Jeff Goodman tweeted. So I have that along with.
Why do you have notifications for Jeff Goodman tweets on? This
So it
is
is your
Because
phone
I
that's
want
dinging?
to.
absolutely insane behavior.
They update news on college basketball, and sometimes I like listening to their podcast.
You
So
can
I'll
just
go and
look
listen to
at
their
it.
podcast. But I get an instant notification to know, oh my God, hey, this just might
That
have
would
happened.
bother
I
the
go and
crap out
swipe.
of me.
Well, that's why I have my phone on Do Not
Do you want to
Disturb.
subscribe to a service? If you pay me money each month, I'll just send you the news that you need to follow.
Oh, yeah. Schaefer knows about newsletters.
I subscribe to newsletters, in particular Jeff
Okay.
Goodman's and Rob Dowsker's newsletter.
Okay. But you also need the notifications, even though you're getting the newsletters.
Well, the newsletters come through the email, and the notifications come live.
Sure.
So there is a difference.
So are you saying you don't actually read the newsletters? You just subscribe to them?
I currently do not read the newsletters
Yeah.
in the off season. I would say during the season.
Have
and
you thought about turning on tweet notifications for like better college basketball people than Jeff Goodman?
if no,
Can I interest
haven't.
you in Myron Metcalf?
I
The
have.
greatest college basketball mind of our generation.
I don't know. Is that Otis Spunkmeyer? Who is that? I don't know who
Byron
Rob
Metcalf has a new friend on this show, and it's Mike Schaefer.
Who
I have
is
never
that?
been a bigger Myron Metcalf fan than I was last week.
Who's Myron Metcalf?
He works for ESPN. You
He
could
covers
probably,
college basketball.
Yeah, you could do some tweet
You can
notifications.
follow his tweets.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm good with all of my college basketball
Well, I
guys. that
promise
have.
you, Myron Metcalf is someone you want to follow. Particularly want to read about his floors and ceilings for Big Ten basketball.
Oh
for
yeah, I'm
next year.
surprised you didn't see that story. Probably
I
'cause you
did
don't have
not.
the tweet notifications on.
No.
You don't even understand why this guy is the greatest thing ever.
what was his floor for Nebraska basketball?
Oh, you're gonna
Like a
love this.
20-some win
There's-
NCAA tournament team that's fifth in
Oh.
the conference.
Oh, did he say in like first round exit, but their ceiling was Elite 8, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Myron Metcalf is
yeah,
the man.
their ceiling was Elite 8 with first in the Big Ten, I believe, is what he had him as,
the
right?
Huskers basketball account tweeted out some quote from some guy I've never heard of saying that Bryce Sanford could be one of the
I
best
saw
players
that
in
one.
college basketball.
Yeah,
And I was like, man,
that guy's my favorite guy now.
I don't know who this guy is, but I'm clearly going to believe him.
You should turn on his tweet notifications.
Yeah.
Stibbs writes in, I'd rather get my toenails ripped off than get notifications for Jeff Goodman tweets.
I like
Do
the
you get
content.
Rothstein notifications?
Yeah, I do.
So
How
every
many-
morning,
Okay, how many
every
accounts are you getting
morning-
notifications?
Is there a way for me to find that on my Twitter settings?
I don't know. But you're saying that every morning at like 5 o'clock, you get a tweet notification that says every day is a gift.
Yes.
Art Lovely.
Yes.
Give me a break.
Yes, I do.
If that wasn't an immediate unsubscribe for me, I don't know what would be.
How
Yeah, this is bad. By the way, TC writes in on YouTube, Betty Crocker is not real. Did you know
Wait, she's
that?
not actually skirting the pot?
What about Sarah Lee?
Betty Crocker is fake. Betty Crocker is a fictional character.
Aunt Jemima?
I don't know about Aunt Jemima.
Count Chocula?
Count Chocula is not a real person, but a real character,
Okay.
I think. Much like Betty Crocker. I didn't know that Betty Crocker and Count Chocula had a lot in common, but maybe they do.
They feed people breakfast every morning.
They do.
Let me see. I'm in settings here for Twitter.
Yesterday, Matt
Notifications.
learned how to use a
Okay.
calendar. Today, Matt learned that he didn't need notifications from 7,000 accounts.
I don't have any. I don't know where I'm at now.
You got to restart, man. Turn them all off.
No,
I
I don't.
definitely don't need Jeff Goodman tweets.
How many NFL writers do you get notifications from?
Schefter, Breer, Kimes, Cronin.
Okay.
All right. How many MLB writers do you get?
Passon,
Rosenthal?
Rogers, and during the trade deadline, Nightingale. But then only during
Ooh,
the trade
you don't
deadline.
need Bob
You turn them off for
Nightingale.
Nightingale after the trade.
You don't
After the trade
ever-
deadline, yeah.
You should
Yeah.
never turn them on.
Hey, what about John Heyman?
or Morosi?
I don't get Heyman. No, I don't get Heyman.
Oh.
I get a bunch of Nebraska writers. I get Sipple, post notifications. I get Walker post notifications. I get your post notifications.
You get from when I do tweets.
Send out a tweet right now, and it will pop up on my up on my phone. I don't have you. No.
Yeah, I'm out.
Why me?
Because I like you. I think you have good content. I don't know. I just have your Twitter
but
notification.
You're getting the content no matter
so
what.
When you tweet out, wow.
Yeah, tweet right now.
Directly to
tweet
Matt's
right
phone.
now. It will pop up on my phone.
Is that going to make you tweet out wow more?
Yes, I'm going to actively tweet.
So I had a tweet
now.
about Paw Patrol, but Matt didn't get to see
I
it.
did see, though. It was so funny about who's paying for this.
I really want to know
who's paying.
the tax setup of Adventure Bay. Because who the hell is paying
I was
for all
laughing my ass off. That was great.
I didn't.
And
see
you're like,
Schaefer's
you're
Paw
like, is
Patrol
this guy?
tweet.
Is he like a billionaire?
Yeah, but
you know,
I
like,
want answers. I'm tired of just not having answers to these things. Like, how the hell does Peter Parker afford all of this
Do the
stuff?
taxpayers of whatever town Paw Patrol is in have high taxes to pay for the lookout and all of this technology? Or is Ryder the son of a billionaire and self-funding this? Additionally, is Ryder an elected official, appointed, volunteer? I don't know enough about the Paw Patrol world to really opine.
My son has gotten really big into Paw Patrol recently.
Yeah, I think my daughter watches some Paw Patrol, but I haven't really studied it enough.
I kind
I
of
can
like
tell
it.
you a lot about the Bluey world, and I was looking up
Bluey's
some
a great world. I would like to spend more time in the Bluey world, but my son wants Spider-Man or Mickey Mouse or now Paw Patrol.
I was looking up some fan theories on because I was thinking about the Frozen universe a couple days ago, and there was something that like like I was thinking about the time period in which Frozen was being documented in.
What is the approximate time period?
Well, so in Frozen 2,
1200 BC.
well, they go into this. The people go into the Enchanted Forest for 32 years or whatever, and like when they come out, the guy doesn't know what a photograph is, but photographs exist. And so at some point in those 32 years, a photograph started existing. So whatever year that was, it was like within a 32-year period.
Okay,
of
well,
that.
we can figure that out.
That would, I don't know if that was a theory, but that was my theory. I don't know when the first photograph existed.
When did commercial photographs?
neither do I. I have no idea.
Anyway, that's what I was thinking about. What are you tapping on? over
Okay.
there?
So 1839, so within 32 years of that.
Okay. All right. So in mid 1800s.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
when
just say
Frozen came out.
1848. That's your date.
That's when Frozen happened. Cool. Nice. Good to know. The more you know.
Okay. Oh, I have 60. Okay, I found it. I have 63 people I have push notifications for.
So
On
I have
Twitter.
0.
You get notifications when every time each of those people tweet.
Yes.
That is abhorrent.
I have 63, but I can only get so many.
Do you look at every notification?
Basically, yeah. I got to see what's going on.
So like how like if I texted you, wouldn't it just get lost in the sea of notifications?
Yeah, that's why I'm terrible at text.
So I have a fix. Just take all the tweet notifications off.
No, but I got to find out my tweet notifications, my man. I got to see who's tweeting.
You don't have to.
No, read me. I know, Schaefer. I get your text notifications.
You just said that they get lost sometimes. So
well,
that's why I said
not
that.
when I'm literally looking at my phone.
Oh, I don't know. Just checking. Sometimes you don't respond at all.
It says 63 people, and yet I only can look at read me. Yeah, look right here.
I did a tweet that said read me.
Yeah.
So that is just as good as a text to you.
If you personally wanted to reach out to me, I would see that and like I would get your message. Your message specifically.
You are kind of bad at text, though. You like once randomly started a conversation with me. I answered your question, and then I never understood where or why it had popped up.
Also, you're a silent notification guy. I noticed this yesterday when we were texting. You had notifications on silent, which is so odd because you have tweet notifications on for Jeff Goodman.
Yeah.
What's going on?
And also for Abby Barmore and Inside Nebraska.
But why do you have
and
text?
Tim Verghese.
Why do you have text silence?
And Ben Solak.
Why do you have text silence?
If you have Ben Solak, but not me, now I'm offended.
The dots guy? The dots? You really need the dots?
Oh, Matt, I really like the over 23 and a half yards for
Jalen Naylor.
Chase Brown today.
I'll turn on Mike Schaefer's.
I don't even want it on. I want Ben Solak off.
I like Ben Solak.
Can we negotiate? I want
We should be in charge of your phone.
I want Bud Solak and Jeff Goodman, both of them. I want them gone.
We want
No,
him out.
I want Jeff. You know what? I like Jeff. I like his content.
All right, here's your
I'm
homework.
sorry. Judge
your
me.
homework
I
for
like
tomorrow.
it.
You have to rank all 63
Jeez.
of your notifications, and then we have to get rid of 5. It is time for some summer cleaning.
Yeah, I'd like to get rid of the bottom 5.
See, Jeff Goodman just tweeted, how much did Seth Trimble get from Louisville?
Yeah,
We
and
divulged
I
the number,
saw
and it's
it.
big.
I saw it because it's a tweet.
Also, who cares?
I care. I mean, Louisville has a massive deficit in their athletic department that they haven't been able to balance, and yet they're still able to pay all this money to the basketball team.
Yeah, because it's different. Everyone knows that.
What do you care about that?
I just find it fascinating.
Do you?
A little.
Do you?
In an age of college football or
Does-
college sports, we're always about balancing the books, and we need more and more money,
Who
and
is
they have a
about
deficit.
Balancing the books.
I mean,
You show me someone talking about balancing the books, and I'll show you someone who ignores it whenever they get what they want.
well, clearly Louisville is ignoring it, and there are other teams who are
So does
not.
everyone when they talk about balancing the books.
Not everyone.
YouTube Kyle writes in, does Matt have Wilson Dittman notifications?
No, I do not. I do not
It's
have
a fair
Wilson.
question, though.
I do not have Wilson Dittman
All right.
notifications.
But do you have Wilson Moore notification?
I don't think I got Big Game Willie, unfortunately.
So Nebraska basketball doesn't get notifications,
But
and
on
Creighton basketball does.
And you know nothing about Myron Metcalf.
no, I don't.
You have so much homework.
No, I don't. This is
And you didn't know who Otis Spunkmeyer was.
well, that was just cookies. I ate Nestle Tula Hoose, you know.
That needs to be dropped. That was just
That
cookies.
was just cookies.
See you guys. This is fun.
Bye-bye.
That was a crossover. Middays of Mac coming up next here on 1620 Zone Radio Network.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people. Whose car are we going to take?
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
That's an absolutely horse crap call. Make room for Daddy. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Chicago is.
This is Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Middays Matt live and rolling here on the 1620 Zone Radio Network. Matt McMaster joined this week by Jake Janicek. How are you doing?
Doing good, Matt.
Doing great.
Good old Wednesday.
Nearly halfway through the week as we are in the first week of padded practices for Nebraska football in fall camp. Closer and closer and closer we are from the beginning of the college football season. Week 0, just in a couple of weeks. Week 1 for Nebraska. Week after that, it should be a ton of fun. The lead up to Husker football season, just college football season in general, kicking off. We talked about it yesterday. People are clamoring for football right now as the Hall of Fame game. 7 million people watched it last Thursday. We'll have another preseason game tomorrow against the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders, as 7 million people watched the Hall of Fame game, more than any MLB game watched this year, along with any NHL game watched this year, which include the Stanley Cup Final. So people fired up for football. The annual article that gives all of the projected value of NFL franchises and franchises alike was released today, and we found that the NFL, the value of NFL franchises continue to skyrocket. And if you want to put one and one together, 7 million people are willing to watch a preseason football game more than any other NHL or MLB game watched this year. No surprise that franchises just continue to balloon in terms of how much they're worth overall, as the ROI from the men and women who bought franchises in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s continued to be some of the best ROI we've seen. Today it was released that the LA Lakers were officially sold today to John Kushner along with Bob Iger for $12 billion. So never been harder to acquire a pro sport franchise in ever, really. And so we Sportico.com released the 2026 NFL franchise value. So we'll talk about that just a little today. We also, like I said, padded practices began this week for Husker football. We got a first taste of open practice yesterday. We were lucky enough to talk to 2 guys yesterday who were there on site in the action, in Michael Severe and Tim Verghese, who kind of gave all of their analysis from what they saw. We were able to, after the show, was able to go through more of Twitter and see some of what was going on, some drills that were being run. I think E.J. Barthel continues to be one of the more impressive stories we've seen from Rule's coaching staff. I think in the first couple of seasons, there was a bit of skepticism, right? Because you necessarily didn't get a ton of production, maybe as much as you were hoping from the running back rooms in year 1 and year 2. But man, year 3, the job that he did with, that he helped doing with EJ, developing him into an NFL running back cannot be understated, along with the fact, he helped Nebraska get into Chicago from a recruiting standpoint, helped acquire guys like Claude and Puma, obviously was a massive part in getting Trey Taylor, the 5-star quarterback, originally from Mundelein, Illinois and Carmel, to now he's playing for Millard South this season in high school football. Millard South, though, I believe they're only going to get one TV game this year. I saw that was released on the Omaha World Herald, kind of breaking down all the different TV games that will be on television in Nebraska in the area for high school football. But anyway, Barthel, watching some of his clips, coaching yesterday, you just keep hearing more and more people just impressed with his growth and how he is as a coach, and obviously what he's done with recruiting. And he's going to have to do a pretty good job this year in terms of all the different guys that they're going to want to utilize. I've talked about this with Tim Verghese. I don't view the running back battle as much as a battle as maybe others would think. And it's not because I think that Mosey is just going to take the job or Nelson is going to take the job or Rule is going to take the job, right? It was interesting. Like, Tim kind of thought he was doing his analysis. He kind of looked at, it might be Rule and Mosey. Michael, he thought, it might be Rule or it might be Mosey and Nelson. I think, honestly, the whole running back battle, I'm not as invested. I'm still invested in it, obviously, because I think whomever has the best camp is going to have the inside track to prove they should get a bulk of the carries in Big Ten play by being able to prove their worth during the first 3 non-con games of the season. But the reason why I'm maybe not as invested in the running back battle is because I think they're going to use all of them. Like, I think they're going to use 3 of them, in a game. They maybe even use 4 of them, in a Big Ten game. We'll see. But I think they all kind of bring fairly unique skill sets from one another in terms of short yardages versus, versatility in the pass game to explosiveness to just experience. Like, I think they're all kind of varied in the effect that they can have in the run game on the team. And so it'll be interesting to see, not only the job that EJ Barthel does this fall camp to get some of these guys ready, because they don't have a ton of experience across this, running back room. There aren't guys, you don't have a bell cow running back returning from last season to this season to give you that explosiveness on the offensive end. You don't really have that guy in the running back room that, hey, when we give him the ball, we know for sure because of what he's done in the past that he can make explosive plays on a dime. And so it'll be interesting to see, what that room develops into. But like I mentioned, I mean, anything you read about EJ Barthel over the last 18 months has really been an impressive progression from where he was, when he first got here as the running backs coach at Nebraska. So more clips we'll continue to talk about from Nebraska's open practice yesterday. Also was able to listen to Rob Aurich's 13-minute press conference with the media. Very impressed by Rob Aurich as a defensive coordinator, how he talks, what he preaches. Simple, fast, and violent. That's what he wants from his defensive group. And I think that gets a lot of people, excited. Talked about how they're already kind of like 80% through a lot of the things that they've installed on the defensive end. I think that Aurich definitely, outside of Rule, I think the head coach, I think this goes without saying, he's always the most important coach on the team, right? He's the leader. He's the guy that everybody looks to. But I think if you were doing coaches outside of Coach Rule who are of most importance for this Nebraska football team, I would say that Aurich definitely would be up at the top. The job that he has to do, implementing his new system, picking out the right pieces for the right jobs in this system, and then also just having his guys, Corey Brown, Roy Manning, Tyler Yelk, develop these defensive players into a unit that, frankly, Nebraska football could not trust towards the end of last year. And, first 2 years under Matt Rule, the defense was the best aspect of the team. And last year, those last 4 games of the year, they ended up being the thing that cost them, wins, that cost them opportunities to win, that cost them competitive games, and eventually kind of put us into the situation of having a low-key, low-vibe, quiet offseason. And so Aurich, his importance, I don't think, can be overstated. And I loved a lot of the things that he talked about. And I think it's interesting, the shift that they're going to, undergo from the 3-3-5 to the 4-2-5, because admittingly, Coach Rule talked about how, they were in 4-down fronts a lot last year. And I think they kind of noticed that, hey, their roster and how it's built and how it's been developed is definitely made a little bit more for having a 4-down defense. And so we'll talk about that just a little bit. I tried using some PFF stats to kind of break that down into more of a clearer number and what we might be able to expect from the defense this season. But overall, I think Aurich is going to be a very, very important. I mean, obviously, he's a very important addition to the staff, but I think more than that, his energy, his open eye, and I think just kind of the fit to this, his scheme to this personnel that they have can end up being really effective for Nebraska's defense. We'll also talk about a Max Olson article. Max Olson, great college football writer for ESPN, did this last year in 2025 where he broke down what is the average cost for quarterbacks, running backs, cornerbacks, linebackers, all the positions in college football. What is the average cost that are going in the transfer portal? He was able to talk to agents, talk to executives for Big Ten teams, talk to coaches of SEC teams to kind of get their insight in terms of what positions were going for what positions are scarce, what positions kind of have a limitless number that they're willing to pay certain players for their impact. It was a fascinating article. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the contents of which Max produced on his article, where he talks about how much quarterbacks and running backs and tight ends and linebackers, what they all cost comparatively to one another. And then let's compare that. We're going to compare that to the NFL. And, we always talk about NFL light. College sports has become NFL light. Well, what are the markets looking like? And I find it very fascinating, the differences between what cornerbacks might be worth in college and what cornerbacks might be worth in the NFL, because you have a lot of teams that are bringing in some NFL personnel to be their college football general manager. Nebraska is one of them. But, the college market and the NFL market are clearly not the same in terms of what specific positions are valued. And so it'll be interesting to see, in my opinion, the evolution of, are some teams in college using an NFL model primarily to evaluate and to pay their players and to build their college rosters, and how does that evolve when you actually get a full, because the college market is evolving, right? This is still relatively new, right? The transfer portal, paying players, your rev share, what you're spending on each position, what can you allocate for each position. I think that is an aspect of college sports that the first team to recognize, all right, actually, this is the college football market and this is how we can maximize it, through how we acquire players. That team who I think figures that out is going to have an advantage. Right now, how sizable would that advantage be? I think only time will tell. But I think it's very, very interesting to compare the two, because we're always comparing college football to the NFL. And, I think that the comparison between the two initially was a little bit off. Like, we still were pretty separated in terms of the college football being compared to the NFL. But I think as time has gone on, things have kind of gotten a little closer to one another, especially now that you just straight up have, college football teams who have like scouting departments and who have NFL executives who have come in and who have had their influence on how they acquire or how they put together college football teams. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Max Olson's article. We'll compare it to the NFL landscape. We'll also talk about Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. Some pretty big news came through in the NFL that J.J. McCarthy not going to be the starting quarterback after being out for an entire season. His first year after injuring himself in the preseason when Sam Darnold, that Minnesota team, they either went 13-4 or 14-3. Mike Schaefer will text me and clarify. But Sam Darnold comes in, has a great year, signs a big contract with Seattle. Minnesota let him go to Seattle in part because they were ready to, use their number 11 draft pick in J.J. McCarthy and see what he can do. And McCarthy, when he wasn't injured, did not play well. Threw more interceptions and touchdowns, had a sub 60% completion percentage. Despite all of that, the Minnesota Vikings, even though that they didn't have their starter, and when their starter was playing, he wasn't very good, was still able to, have a serviceable season. So we'll see. Murray will be the starting quarterback, despite the fact that all reports indicated that Kyler Murray, or J.J. McCarthy rather, was having better reps and having better practices at training camp. And so despite the fact that those reports were coming out, I think that Kevin O'Connell made this decision in part because they got to catch Kyler Murray up with this with this offense rather, and they got to get him up to speed, and they got to make sure that he knows the ins and outs of the KOC offense. And I don't think you're going to be able to do that as effectively if you are splitting reps between the two quarterbacks trying to figure out, hey, who is going to be our starter? And so I think that if you were going to make J.J. McCarthy the starting quarterback, you might have made that decision a little bit later in the process to see if he was fully ready. But clearly, they're ready to make Kyler the quarterback. They're ready to give him the most number one reps. And what does that mean for J.J. McCarthy's career in the future? Along with an interesting graphic I saw on Twitter included the success of the 2023 Michigan roster in the NFL. What guys who got drafted after Michigan won the national championship, what did their careers end up looking like in the NFL? I'll give you a little spoiler alert here. Hasn't panned out really well for any of those guys. There's a couple who have had some pretty decent careers. And I think a guy like Blake Corum, who has gradually gotten more reps and more carries, and definitely was more of a focal point in the LA Rams offense last year. Like, I think that's a guy that from that team that will end up having a real good career, because you've seen that progression. But he definitely wasn't like one of those running backs that we've seen, especially out of the Big Ten, who just burst out into the scene and have a great season. It's been a gradual progression for him. But there are a lot of Michigan Wolverines on that 2023 roster that got drafted and, haven't really had a big impact in the NFL. And it makes you think, does that kind of relate to the sign stealing scandal? Does that relate to the fact that a lot of those times, a lot of their tape, a lot of those guys' tape came against teams where they might have known, if a pass was coming, or if a run was coming, or where the run was going, or, they had, stolen signs. At the same time, though, it's hard to balance that with the fact that you cannot deny that team ended up beating Alabama and Washington and ended up, winning the playoff games they needed to win in order to win the national championship. So it's very interesting when you kind of put all of those different elements, what that continuous legacy of the 2023 Michigan team will be, because they were stealing signs, but they didn't do it at the end, and they still won a national championship. And apparently that was enough for them to be allowed to keep their national championship they won in 2023, despite being punished for, committing those violations. And so that's kind of just another piece to the pie and another piece to the puzzle. Is J.J. McCarthy, his career most definitely in jeopardy. We'll also talk about Kevin O'Connell and some interesting things that he said previously that have now related to his situation with J.J. McCarthy, his young quarterback, not going to be the starter for his football team. We'll also talk about Phil Steele, some crazy things going on in terms of people stealing his magazine and selling fakes of his magazine on Amazon. So much I saw his tweet come out on Twitter about, hey, don't buy these different magazines. And all of a sudden it popped up as an athletic article. I go, whoa, this is pretty serious. So we'll talk about that. Paul Skeens had another very weird outing yesterday. Only goes 5 innings. Didn't give up that many runs, only 2 earned runs. But at the same time, his velocity concerns continue to raise red flags where I don't think he touched 98 yesterday on one of the pitches on any of the pitches that he's thrown. So that's a mystery that continues to build in Major League Baseball that people continue to have opinions on. We'll also talk about one of the best in-game promos that maybe I've ever seen. Unfortunately, it stemmed from a team I cannot stand. But the White Sox did some pretty awesome things yesterday that are going viral, which it'll be interesting to see if I saw a great tweet. So they at the White Sox game, because, the Pope is from Chicago, and the Pope very famously was found at one of the game. I forget which game of the World Series, but he was at a World Series game in Chicago. They found the clip of him, and he's a known White Sox fan. He took a picture with AJ Pierzynski, which was absolutely incredible. They did a Pope themed promotion yesterday at the White Sox game that we'll talk a little bit more about. But they did a peace be with you in the 5th inning. In the 5th inning, they said, all right, everybody show each other the sign of peace. It'll be fun to see if more, I don't know if more pro teams will ever end up doing it, but I saw a great tweet being coming to a Big East basketball arena near you, which that'll be funny. In between a Xavier and Creighton game in Cincinnati, they all started doing peace be with you. But anyway, so we'll talk about Rob Aurich, his great press conference yesterday, some of the clips we saw him coaching up the linebackers. We'll talk about Max Olson's college football article in terms of what teams are paying certain positions. I don't have too many opinions in terms of I think you should pay this position versus this position. I don't have too much of that. But I do find it interesting, like seeing the compare and contrast to what the college football market looks like compared to the NFL market, because we're always comparing the two leagues. We're always comparing college football versus the NFL. Well, from a value standpoint, what positions does college football value compared to what positions do the NFL value? So we'll talk about that along amongst some NFL training camp updates. Got some injuries that happened. Nate Wiggins not looking too good for the very young and promising cornerback out of Clemson for the Baltimore Ravens. Announced yesterday, Kobe Bryant, the massive signing for the Chicago Bears and their secondary. What was originally supposed to be an 8 to 10 week injury for Bryant has turned into a 4 to 6 month injury for Kobe Bryant, the big signing, Super Bowl champion Kobe Bryant for the Seattle Seahawks last season. He will be out for an extended period of time. There's some hope that he might be able to come back in the playoffs. I'll be frank with you. Unless the Bears, their offense takes some massive steps, that's a big loss for him. That's a very big loss for him, considering the fact that they moved on from Jaquan Brisker and got Kobe Bryant to replace him. Now they lose the guy who replaces what was a key part for them last year in the secondary. So Bears offense going to have to be pretty good for them to make a deep run in the NFC North. So if you're an NFC North fan, if you're a Vikings fan, Packers fan, a Lions fan, not that you're rooting for injuries to happen, but that was probably, if you were to tell me, hey, rank who can't get injured on the Chicago Bears roster. And this is me talking as a fan. Rank who can't get injured on the Chicago Bears roster. Obviously, Caleb Williams would be at the top of that list. And then I'd probably say Darnell Wright. And not too far off of that would be Kobe Bryant, who's going to be out for basically the entire season. We'll see how his injury progresses. To be fair, though, like, we got guys coming back super early from Achilles. We have guys who tear their ACL in December who seem like they're going to be ready to go for the beginning of the year. Like, it just seems like we are in a different era in terms of how quickly it takes for some of these guys to get back from injury. So I think after Daniel Jones, tearing his Achilles and then seemingly going to be ready to go like immediately this season, and Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL late in the year and he's going to be ready to go for week 1. I mean, it's fascinating how much quicker guys are coming back from being hurt than they were in the past. So anyway, we got a pretty loaded show today. Going to be baseball, going to talk a little basketball, going to talk a little football. But before that, the Creighton Blue Jays, the basketball team, they have added a point guard to their roster. We'll talk more about that point guard coming up next with John Walker, the Omaha World Herald, here on Middays with Matt. Well, we've talked to this next guest plenty about the Creighton basketball roster and the fact that they had one roster spot open and they were potentially looking at adding another guard. And that has happened with Creighton basketball today, as it was announced that Brody Robinson, who played at Oakland last year, had 6.7 assists per game. It was 11th nationally, is now joining the Creighton Blue Jays roster due to the class of 2022 getting an extra year of eligibility for those seniors who used all their eligibility ending last season. We bring on John Walker of the Omaha World Herald, who one of the best on the Creighton basketball beat, to tell us, what does this mean, John, for the outlook of this upcoming season for Creighton basketball and Allen Huss?
Yeah, I don't know if this changes the outlook too much.
Okay.
It certainly raises the floor, because anytime you can get a guy who was 11th nationally in assists to come off your bench, that certainly helps. But yeah, I don't know. Largely because it just happened like an hour ago. But I am candidly shocked that they added another guard to this group.
Yeah,
I
so
figured if they were going to use one of the final two spots, which they obviously intended to do, that it would be to secure more wing depth around Hudson Greer, Jason Green, and Jackson McAndrew, or it would be to add to an unproven front court. We all know Osman Arunse is one of the best shot blockers that the Big East has had over the past couple of years, but what about behind him? I thought that was a question that Creighton might have answered with one of these fifth-year guys, and the Jays add to their backcourt instead.
Well, when we were talking before all of this injunction stuff went down, you had mentioned that you thought that there could be another guard being added, whether it be, late or overseas even. So you are, even though that was something they were looking at previously, potentially, you're still shocked they added another guard, even though that they were kind of looking at it earlier?
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really interesting. I'm not too surprised, because in the end, they were looking at another guard. So in I think a lot of people's minds, one of those final two spots was going to be taken by a guard, maybe just not Brody Robinson, obviously. But it's once that plan lingered, because it's obviously still not resolved with the guard they were going to get, then it was okay, maybe they've seen what they like out of Catrell Harmon this summer, which they have. Maybe they're confident in BJ Davis. Maybe Wes Enos. You have Austin Swartz. You have Bug Edwards. And so it's okay, maybe since plans seemingly fell through, you pivot and address other needs. And address other needs with one of those final two spots, or with both of the final two spots, ideally. But no, they go and get another guard.
When this news first came across Twitter, Happer and Connor Happer, obviously, announces games for Creighton men's basketball. Great coverage of Creighton men's basketball here on the radio. The MC for the Blue Jays. Him and I were both kind of surprised in terms of okay, do they expect him to be the starting point guard? Is that what you might expect? And then maybe Enos at the two with Green, McAndrew, and Arunse, or is he going to be more of a supporting piece off the bench? Or, is there a possibility where maybe some guys emerge, a couple of, I know we're still a ways away from the beginning of the season, where maybe he doesn't get a whole lot of, is there any sort of, is there any prediction or any to be made, or is it just going to we'll see what we see when we get to day one with all this?
Yeah, I think it's too early to say.
Candidly.
Yeah. The kid hasn't even stepped foot on campus yet. So it's how do you know?
Sure.
You think but everything changes once you get into the system and start getting reps in and this, that, and the other. So classes start on 18th, I believe. So they'll all be back soon. Yeah, and the group will be together. So I don't know exactly what his role will be, but if I had to project one at this moment, it would be as a key bench piece.
Okay.
Or at least off the bench. Candidly, I would be shocked if he started over BJ Davis, who has high major experience from San Diego State. and Catrell Harmon, who by all accounts has been really, really impressive this summer.
Yeah. Do you think there's a possibility that they'll use, so you mentioned 2 roster spots being open now, after this edition of Brody Robinson, the point guard from Oakland, who averaged 17.6 points and 6.7 assists last year. Do you think there's a possibility with there being more fifth year seniors from the class of 2022? You think there's a possibility to add another guy to this roster?
Yeah, I do. I do. I don't know who that would be, but I do. I was on vacation all of last week, but before I left, I talked to somebody in the program, and they were like, "Yeah, like these options are available, so we're going to explore them fully." And so, yeah, they already showed the willingness to go out and get one of these fifth-year guys with Brody Robinson this morning. And so I absolutely, positively think they'd be open to doing it again. Will they? We'll see. But when you have something like this shake out this late in the summer, it's hard to find like needle movers in most instances. I don't know. I say that and I woke up at 6 a.m. and Louisville landed Seth Trimble. So like that, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking out of my cheek here, but
sure.
It's hard for a lot of teams to find needle movers at this juncture in the off season. And so like, how many of those are out there? I'm not sure. But if Creighton finds somebody who fits Alan Huss's culture and certainly fits this team's needs, which at this point I believe are a wing or with only one roster spot open, another front court piece, then they'll absolutely do that, I believe.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, because where the hell's Louisville getting all this money from? Like, because we're at the point where
money, man. Horse racing money.
I mean, they're going to have a basketball team that already spent a ton of money during the original portal, right? They get Flory Badunga. That was their massive, what they acquired, their big get in the portal. They're going to be ranked anywhere from maybe, 14 to 18 is something, is, some of the spots I've seen them go in early college basketball polls. For college football preseason polls, they're going to be ended up, probably in the top 25, maybe even to begin the year in football. And yet, they've had some very public reports of, hey, you got a pretty big, a deficit when it comes to your athletic budget, right? They've had to, be bailed out the last couple of years in terms of the money that they're losing in terms of revenue. And yet they're able to spend gobsmacks of money on both football and basketball. It just begs the question, where's all this crap coming from?
Yeah, I really couldn't tell you. I mean,
yeah.
If you search through the bluegrass long enough, you'll find some green. You know what I mean? But part of me is saying this as someone who grew up a Kentucky fan, and part of me is saying this as an objective college basketball reporter. There is absolutely, positively zero excuse for Pat Kelsey this season.
Oh, without a doubt.
If Louisville does not win some darn games in March, that is a huge, huge, huge problem, because most pieces, we saw this with Creighton last year. Owen Freeman doesn't work out. Jackson McAndrews out for the season. It's like, all right, that's kind of it. Like, we're missing our, the anointed one, the face of the program, and the Ryan Kalkbrenner replacement. Like, yeah, that's wrapped. And Louisville has enough money and has built a roster to which that shouldn't be an issue. It's like, okay, is it helpful to have Seth Trimble? Duh. If Seth Trimble goes down, oh no, we have Jackson Shelstad still. Like, it's ridiculous. They're going to be they should be a ridiculously good team. Will they be? Boy, they better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I read an article here. They, this is just something I'll read you very quickly, on, I think it's MSN.com. Louisville Athletics sets 2026-2027 budget, faces $30 million deficit. The University of Louisville Athletic Association Board on Thursday approved a $180 million budget for the 27 fiscal year, projecting $149 million in revenue. The the athletic department expects to run a record deficit of about $30 million. Its fifth negative balance in 8 years. And so they're anticipating to lose a lot of money in the athletic department, yet they have no problem making these big moves in basketball to make sure that Pat Kelsey's got all of the tools he will need, like you said, to make a big run in March. And that's just kind of the reality we face in college athletics at this point. These athletic departments, some of them are pinching pennies and trying to, figure out as many different ways to get revenues from fans in order to keep up with the Joneses. And you have athletic departments like Louisville who are very clearly okay with having some pretty big deficits in their athletic department. Let's move off of basketball. Pretty big news, though, with Brody Robinson from Oakland joining Creighton men's basketball roster. Still one open roster spot left for Creighton as we talk to John Walker, the Omaha World Herald. You're also on the volleyball beat for Creighton. Big season for Brian Rosen, the second-year head coach for the Blue Jays. His team ranked 13th in the AVCA preseason poll. A big non-conference slate ahead of the Blue Jays, playing number 1 Nebraska, number 7 Louisville, number 8 Texas A&M, number 9 Purdue, number 14 Minnesota, and number 20 USC. John, you're going to be at Volleyball Media Day today. What's just kind of the vibe around the team and the expectations they have for themselves this year after coming off an Elite 8 appearance last season?
Not Volleyball Media Day. That'll be soon. I'm just
okay.
Practice.
You're just going by practice. My apologies.
John Walker Media Day or something like that.
Yeah.
There are yet again to surprise nobody, huge expectations around Creighton volleyball. Like, they have won the Big East so many years in a row that I can't remember if it's 11 or 12, but it's a decade plus. And so, like, they dominate their league, and especially over the past, let's say 5 years or so, they have scheduled their non-conference in a way where they're not just trying to get wins, they're trying to get seeding. They want to host a final or an Elite 8. They want to host the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. 2 seasons ago, they go to Penn State. They barely missed the cutoff to host the second weekend. They go to Penn State. They lose in 5 sets to the eventual national champion. I think this past season they went to Kentucky. Again, barely missed the cutoff to host. Have to go to Kentucky, play the host team, lose in 5 sets. And so it's like, how can they get in a situation where if they have another 5-setter in the second weekend in the Elite 8 on the doorstep of their first Final Four, how can they make sure that is played in Sokol Arena? I'll tell you how, Matt. You go schedule 6 preseason top 25 teams.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Jays did. And there are a lot of questions around this team, more so than there have been the past couple of seasons, because last year, even though they lost Kendra Waite and Nora Sist, he said, okay, it's going to take time, but we think Anna Mater's pretty good, and we still have Ava Martin, and we have Kiara Reinhart, so everything was peachy, and obviously they were really good. Those stalwarts, those cornerstones are gone.
Yeah.
And so there are some questions around this team. Part of them, I hope to answer in a story that I'll write before this weekend. Part of them will be answered starting as soon as this weekend when the Jays have their first preseason exhibition. And of course, most of them will be answered over the next 3 or 4 months. So yeah, another expected to be highly competitive Creighton volleyball season incoming. It's right around the corner, man.
John Walker, the Omaha World Herald, doing incredible work as always. J-Dub, appreciate you. Excited to read both your content after this big edition for the Creighton men's basketball team, along with some of your takeaways from volleyball practice today. We will talk to you soon, my man.
Yes, sir. See you, Matt.
John Walker of the Omaha World Herald. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I'll be doing Blue Jay overtime this year. I don't know if I've officially said that, but I will be on the post game once again for great basketball games this season. Very excited about that. I believe, Jake, you'll be producing a lot of those games with me this season. Very interesting edition with Brody Robinson. It's funny. I mean, John is very tuned in, very locked into what Creighton men's basketball is doing and what they're looking at. And so is Happer, who was here on the crossover, and both those guys who I trust very dearly were very surprised, right? We're kind of taken aback by this addition. Walker, would come on the show and never really mentioned by name, but always kind of put out there that Creighton was, back in the later part of the transfer portal, potentially looking at another guard before they even got into, summer training. They never ended up doing that. And they had 2 open roster spots on their roster. And it definitely seems like they were keeping these spots open in anticipation for this happening. And they go ahead and they add Brody Robinson Jr. to what already is a, pretty crowded, but also very talented group of guards that they have. And Walker has been on here multiple times talking about how impressed this coaching staff has been by Cottrell Harmon, the freshman coming in, the 4-star freshman coming in, and maybe him having a potential role. And we saw a lot being written about Wes Enos and, his leadership and competitiveness and how he's pushed guys in practice, along with the fact that BJ Davis from San Diego State, plays that kind of tough, rugged, intense style of defense and has a lot of high major basketball experience coming from the Aztecs. It's one of those things where you got Davis, you got Enos, you got Harmon, you also have Austin Swartz, who had some very exciting moments for you last year. You add that into kind of the Swiss Army knife and Hudson Greer, and what will he be able to contribute to this team with already a front court where you understand, all right, hey, you're going to have McAndrew there, you'll have Oswin Arunse there. Where does Isaac Trout kind of fit into that rotation with all that stuff? And now you add another guy in Brody Robinson from his last stop at Oakland. Obviously, I haven't watched tape. I didn't watch any Oakland basketball last year. I won't pretend like I'm a sicko. But it's one of those things where you have 17 points per game and you have 6.7 assists per game. You can go ahead and deduce, hey, the guy probably had the ball in his hands a lot, right? Will that be the case when he plays for Creighton this year? Will he be a guy, whether it be in the second unit or starting, is this going to be a guy they're going to run a lot of offense through? Who's to say? And I think that'll be definitely interesting to see how that progresses. If I had to take my best guess, I'm gonna guess that he'd probably be a spark plug off the bench, because I think they really like what they have with Davis and Enos, and what they can do with Harmon. PC in the chat goes backup point guard, giant improvement over Ty Davis from last year. This is Black Cat's opinion. Backup point guard, giant improvement over Ty Davis. Anything else is a bonus. Yeah, like I've said about this Creighton men's basketball roster, obviously we would like a little bit more front court depth after Arunse, because his reputation, with being in foul trouble in the Big East. But I think that Oswin solves all of the problems really singularly himself from what they had last year. It's just, what is the depth going to look like behind him? But with the addition of Brody Robinson, you got a lot of guys on this Creighton men's basketball team that can handle the ball. You got a lot of guys on this team who can create offense for themselves in the backcourt, and that doesn't really, include, what Jason Green can do as kind of that glue guy, Swiss Army knife that they have on both ends of the floor, and the spacing that Jackson McAndrew can bring. And that's the one thing too that unfortunately you didn't have last year from Jackson, is you would have loved to seen his ability to slash to the basket, take another step through playing. But, unfortunately his injury very early in the year keeps him out. Does he take that progression this year? I think, already without Robinson, you had a lot of interesting elements into what Creighton can do on offense. We've even talked about it here with J-Dub. Could they run 3 guard lineups? Could they go super small, right, and run 4 guard lineups, maybe even if they wanted to with Greer? Like what could they do? I think Robinson now adds another level to that. Smaller guard though, under 6 foot, so that'll be interesting. But it's not like small guards haven't worked at Creighton before, a la Stephen Ashworth. So we will see. Very, very interesting. Some of the things happening across college basketball because of this injunction allowing seniors from last year to get a 5th year. I think it just probably would have been easier for everybody if they just grandfathered them all in, and just figured out all this stuff to begin with anyway. But that's neither the point. Seth Trimble being added to Louisville's roster today. Like we mentioned, Louisville going all in on this basketball roster, and also has a fairly talented football roster as well. Just reporting real quick here on Twitter during our interview for you ACC basketball fans, Jai Lucas, the head coach of Miami, he got a 5-year extension after having 24 regular season wins last season. So he'll sign a 5-year extension and stay in Coral Gables for the immediate future. All right, take a break here and talk a little college football. Rob Aurich hit the stand yesterday, hit the podium, talked to the media after Nebraska's second padded practice. Did tell the media, we don't really know what the depth chart's going to look like. We have a lot of football to be played ahead of us, but I really like some of the things that he said, and I really like the energy that this guy's bringing. I have some opinions too on some previous things that have been said by the head coach. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up here on Middays with Matt on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network. Doing some research, just very, very, very slowly here on the 2023 Michigan football roster from the NFL draft. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show when we go ahead and talk about Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. But it's going to the research I've done about the Michigan Wolverines who were drafted off that 2023 national championship. Not looking good so far, Jake Janicek. Not looking good in terms of some of the guys who came off that national championship team who have had pretty lackluster careers so far in the NFL. One of those being JJ McCarthy, where, I was talking to Michael Severe yesterday in regards to McCarthy and Murray and that whole situation where it seemed like by all accounts, I'm not at Minnesota Viking training camp, but it seemed like by all accounts that JJ McCarthy was playing really well and doing well in training camp and looked like he was progressing potentially to be the starting quarterback for the Vikings. But yesterday announced Murray was the starter. Severe, very, by the way, Michael's not incorrect when he brings this up about Murray, where he goes, well, I'm worried about his durability. I'm worried about, he's a smaller quarterback. Can he take that punishment? Maybe he's already taken that punishment too much and it's affected his play when it comes to, being a quarterback in the NFL. I will say, though, say what you want about Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy also equally made of glass so far in his NFL career, where he missed his entire first season after being injured in the preseason with a knee injury, and then last season only played 10 games. And it wasn't just, he had one injury and he ended up, not playing for 7 different contests. Like those 7 games, they were spread out through the entirety of the season because it felt like he always had something, whether it be an ankle or whether it be fracturing his hand or, some sort of other injury. Very interesting to see what that quarterback battle being over, but what the quarterback situation looks like in Minnesota as things continue. But before we talk about Minnesota and more things happening on NFL training camp, let's go ahead and talk about Rob Aurich, who spoke yesterday at Husker, in front of the podium, in front of the Husker media. Very interesting things said in general. Talked about, how much of an honor it is for him to be the defensive coordinator for the University of Nebraska. Did a really good job of threading the needle, of talking about the black shirts, how much they mean to him. And, being a guy who grew up in the Midwest, played D2 football at Minnesota Duluth, where he was a national champion and one of the leading tacklers all time for his school. And I think that, he did a very good job of being concise, being straightforward, explaining to people what his philosophy is, right? I loved, and you heard in the practice report, the quote about, we want to be simple, right? We fast, violent, simple. That's what he believes in. But he also talks about attacking and having enough in his defensive install in order to attack. And I think that's a very good, clarification in terms of how certain DCs, and you see it a lot in the NFL, how they react to things. I think the best example is Sean McDermott versus Jim Leonard, where, McDermott, 4-down guy, Buffalo played with a lot of 4-down linemen, and they play their base defense, and they'd make you beat them, right? Hey, we're going to play our base coverage. This is what we're going to do. This is what we run. We're going to run it at a very high level, and it's up to you to try and beat us. And then you make adjustments, right? Throughout that. Where Jim Leonard, for Buffalo and previously of Wisconsin and Denver, he was a 3-down guy, 3-down line guy. And Jim Leonard's thing is we attack. Vic Fangio did it too. He does it a ton now in Philly, but he did it a lot in Denver, and he did it even more in Chicago, where every week they had something drawn up for the defense, where it wasn't necessarily about, hey, this is what we do and this is what we do really well, where it's actually more about, we're going to punch you first, right? We're going to come out on something that maybe we haven't run a lot on tape, but we know what counters what you want to do the most, right? And there's kind of different philosophies and coordinators when it comes to, hey, we run our base stuff and we run it at a super high level, come and beat us, versus, no, we're going to be versatile. we are going to run different things. We are going to have athletes on our roster that are able to line up in different positions in order to attack the weaknesses of your offense. And both provide pros and both provide cons, right? Sometimes if you're running different stuff to try and attack the defense, you might not be running the things that are most conducive to your personnel. So you put your guys maybe in less advantageous situations, where if you're kind of always running your base defense, right? What happens if the offense makes an adjustment that finds a weakness within your defense and you're not able to adjust back to it quick enough or at all, right? And so there's a give and take. And I loved Aurich once again, kind of like threading the needle between, no, we're going to be simple and we're going to be fast and we're going to be very physical, but we're also going to adjust to the defense. We're going to have enough in the install and we'll be diverse enough to where we can attack offenses. And I think that it's first off, a great way of explaining it, and I'm always very impressed by advanced football minds who are able to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but explain things simply enough to people for them to understand what they're communicating. Because to me, and this is just maybe me overreading in press conferences, but if you can do that with me as a media member, and somebody who hasn't been in the locker room and hasn't been in the meeting room, if you can do that with me for me to understand what you're explaining, I think it communicates how you can do that with players who do know a lot, who have played football, who, especially on this roster, on this Nebraska roster, have a lot of experience. And you can't deny the success that, Aurich has had as a DC last year with San Diego State. They were number 3 in red zone defense. They were number 5 in defensive touchdowns, and they were number 6 in scoring defense, number 6 in passing defense. They were 11th in first down defense, 12th in total defense, 13th in third down conversion defense, and 14th in total interceptions. Those stats come from Amy Just. Wrote a great article in the Omaha World Herald earlier today about Aurich. Last year, San Diego State's defense, has a ton of pedigree in terms of what they were able to accomplish. And, him, and I, once again, it's very in tune with Tony White and Coach White. And I remember being at those pressers. I remember talking to him and him being like, this is our system. This is my system. This is what we do. This is how we do it. We're going to teach the guys up and we're going to find the best guys to fit in those positions. And that encourages me. And I know that, like, Sip called it a reset to Rule, and Rule got upset about it. And I can understand why Rule would take that the wrong way, but there's nothing in me, right? Because reset, if you like when you say reset, it's too close to rebuild, where it's almost like you're making somebody like admit failure. Like you're admitting that, hey, we did everything wrong and we've had to completely reset things. And so I understand Rule not wanting to admit that he did, everything wrong, because I don't think he did everything wrong, but he definitely had to make adjustments, which is what he did. So, like with Sipple calling it a reset and Rule disagreeing with that, like I kind of more lean towards Sipple in terms of, you brought a lot of new things in. You brought a lot of new coaches in. You brought a new quarterback in. You brought in help on the defensive line. Like you did a lot of, you brought in a lot of new things, and you made, if it ain't a reset, you made some pretty big adjustments. And at that point, we're just talking semantics. But I think, though, it does not matter if it's a reset or big adjustments or this or that or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it works. Right. And I think just watching Aurich, watching what he talks about, listening to what he talks about, how he talks about it, in particular, the confidence in which he talks about it encourages me. It encourages me that he's out there on the field, getting physical with players, putting his hands in pads, demonstrating this is what we do. He has a passion for what he does. You could tell he's trying, like, this means a lot to him. It means, and sometimes it doesn't to guys, right? I mean, that's just people are human, and it means a lot to him. He's confident in what he does. And whether or not it's a reset or whatever, whatever you want to call it, I think he definitely reinvigorates this defense, and he definitely re-energizes this defense. And, Rule talked about, this was a conversation that Gary and I had in the morning show plenty, where 3-3-5, like they ran a lot of 4 down fronts. Like, they had 787 snaps, less than half of them were they running guys, playing as a true nose over the center, right? Like they were going 4 down plenty. And Rule talked about that in his 25-minute press conference. Like, hey, we did run a lot of 4 down stuff. And we did think that our roster right now is better off being in a 4 down defense than it is being a 3 down defense. And so, he brings that. And I think there is something to be said about just bringing in new eyes and bringing in guys to look at a batch of players that they have no previous thoughts of, that they can just simply evaluate their play and evaluate their ability and evaluate their ability to learn and to adapt and to grow, and then identify, all right, who is our best 11 and how is this new scheme? How can we get that best 11 out there? I think there is a lot to be said about the benefit of that, and I think that there's also, and I know this pretty recently because, playing high school sports, when you go from one coach to another coach, you understand, all right, whatever that previous coach thought about me, right? Whether he liked me or didn't like me, or whether I did things he wanted to, or whether I didn't do things he wanted to, that doesn't matter anymore. New coach means new opportunity. He doesn't have any previous thoughts about me. He doesn't have any, preconceived thoughts about me, right? He's just going to watch me play. And if I can impress him, I'm going to be able to get more playing time than I was last year. And it does put pressure on players who did play a lot last year, because they're saying, hey, it doesn't matter what my previous coach thought about me last year. It does not matter. This is a new set of eyes. This is a new idea. This is a new system. I got to up my level. I got to up my game. And so bringing in a new defensive coordinator, bringing in a new D-line coach, bringing in a new D-ends coach, bringing in a new safeties coach, it makes the guys who had a lot of playing time last year think, all right, I got to step it up and I got to impress these guys like I did the last guys who are my coaches. And it makes the new guys go, all right, I didn't play a lot last year and it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is if I can impress these guys and if I can find a way to fit into that system. And so that presence of new DC and new coaches, especially when they're good, right? And they're experienced, and these guys are experienced. And from their last stop, that they're good because of the numbers they produce. That ups the energy, that ups the level, that ups the intensity, right? And so that's what this defense needs. Call it a reset, call it a big adjustment, call it whatever the hell you want. I think it's exactly what this defense needed. There is no way, absolutely no way, that they could have continued to go down the path that they were last year. And they needed something new. And I think bringing in a young DC who understands how big of an opportunity this is, who talks about it being a privilege to be the defensive coordinator for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and also having him bring guys who are experienced from not only a playing perspective. Tyler Yelk was a hell of a D2 player in his college career, but also coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, coming from the pro ranks. Corey Brown and Roy Manning have a ton of experience and a lot of familiarity with Aurich, and a ton of experience with being just football coaches in general, which is exactly what I think this roster needed. They needed guys who were experienced. They needed guys who have been in the game for a long time. And then I can't say enough, man, like this Owen Chambliss dude, I'm excited. I'm excited about him. He's a dude. He's a guy, 6'3", 240, has the tangibles to transition into being an effective Big Ten linebacker, has the measurables to transition into being an effective Big Ten linebacker. But then, man, his poise at the podium, 25 minutes, breaking everything down, thinking everything out, being quick, being concise, but also being able, like, once again, like Aurich and Chambliss are very similar in where they were able to explain football things so well to people who don't play football. And they were able to, and for me, like, I'm listening to Chambliss, and like I said this about Chambliss. when Chambliss talked at the podium, it's almost he had a presence that challenges media members to ask good questions, to, to not just do the, hey, lazy, low-hanging fruit questions. His presence kind of challenges you to step up your game a little bit. And if he's doing that with media members, how is he like with players? I think Aurich is the same way, which is why I think those guys connect really well, which is why Chambliss was his guy at San Diego State and why Chambliss followed him to Aurich. I think those two are on the same level. When you have a DC and a middle linebacker kind of on the same level, right, in terms of how they approach things, how they talk about things, how they make people feel. I want that. I want that. I don't want the disconnect. I want that connection. And so those two, man, like, I don't know. You want to say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, fine, but I also think that you're going off of Aurich was successful in his last stop, and he brings a presence that makes you think he can continue down that path. And Chambliss was successful in his last stop, and he brings a presence that makes you think that he can continue down that path. And once again, I don't give a damn what you call it, but I think his presence and his assistant coach's presence, and even the new guys they brought in, like McDougal and Chambliss, they have the ability, they have the potential to reignite something in this defense, because this defense was really good in 23. It was really good in 24. It challenged top teams like Ohio State the year they won the national championship. They need that this year. They need that again this year. Amongst a lot of things they need a defense that can be close to that level again. I loved what I heard from Aurich. If you have an opinion what you heard from Aurich, let's go. Let's take your text messages, 42951-1620, or call in 429-1620, 429-951-1620, the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline, and the Equitable Bank Zone inbox. Equitable Bank, they take banking personally. Always pick with the first ring. Matt at 1620 Zone. I want to hear your opinions on Rob Aurich, DC, what he said at the podium yesterday. Let's do odd news and get to that at 12 o'clock. Coming up next here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network.
And now we've reached the point in the show where Josh Odson reads the peculiar, the bizarre, the comical, the odd news with Odd Son. Odd news, Odd Son. See what we did there? The odd news with Oddson.
All right, Janie, let's do it.
So Tulsa Little League officially done at Little League World Series due to an ineligible player after a legal battle. Not sure if you heard about this.
I did not. No, I do not follow the Little League World Series.
So basically, Tulsa tried to have a player that was 10 years old and not in that region play with them. And then the Little League World Series ended up catching on to that. And what they did was they went to the court system and somehow got a temporary restraining order.
What are we doing?
I know, using the courts with this, got a temporary restraining order to allow this player to play. And then Little League Baseball filed a 330-page emergency motion and ended up getting rejected. And Tulsa is now out of the Little League World Series.
You a Little League World Series guy?
I mean, not really. I mean, my dad watched it a bunch when I was growing up.
I never really got into it.
No.
I remember, back I was in 8th grade. It was the Chicago's team ended up making it pretty deep in the College World Series, and then they had a bunch of ineligible players who came from different districts. That was a whole mess and everything like that. I remember it was we had to write a report on it and whose side were we on. In 8th grade, it was a little weird, if I'm being honest. Having a temporary restraining order in order for a kid to play in the Little League World Series seems like it's a little bit overkill. If you ask me,
I NCAA do it, and they're let's try it here.
I have heard of people who are really into it, and I can't. And now I will say, if Nebraska had a team that went super deep in the Little League World Series, I would tune in for a game. Because I'd be like, hell yeah, state pride. If, Illinois had a team that went pretty deep in the Little League World Series, I would be like, okay, I'm with it. But I'm just for a regular sitting around, nothing to do type deal, I don't know. It's never really fully interested me. It does interest some people, though, for sure. What's our next story?
Man who drank heavily and took steroids without working out finishes last in a bodybuilding debut. So... Peter Mossfield has officially taken his bizarre bodybuilding experiment to the stage. Mossfield, the man behind the viral Booze Bag Fitness account, previously gained attention by claiming he was taking steroids and drinking heavily while not working out, with the goal of eventually entering a bodybuilding competition.
Booze Bag Fitness. Guy looks better than I thought he would, honestly. He doesn't look that good. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it is a very good idea to mix steroids and alcohol. I'm not a medical expert, but that doesn't sound like it's the smartest thing to do. I don't know.
Very interesting.
I have no, very interesting indeed. Probably not very intelligent either. No. But to be fair, you run Booze Bag Fit. Can you imagine being you meet somebody's you got a girlfriend, you meet their parents, and they're like, hey, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Oh, I run a social media channel. Oh, makes good money? Yeah, makes really good money, actually. We have some advertising, and I'm sponsored by people. I'm like, oh, what do you bring? I bring in 6 figures. Oh, my God. Good for you. What's it called? Oh, it's called Booze Bag Fitness is what it's called. That immediately just completely takes away from any sort of rapport you might have built with your successful. So yeah, I run Booze Bag Fitness. It's no big deal. It's a small little channel. That's something. All right, third and final odd news story.
Shake Shack worker allegedly robbed his own store and then returned to work days later.
Okay.
So a Phoenix man faces armed robbery and kidnapping charges after police say he robbed the Scottsdale Shake Shack location where he worked and then went to the store 2 days later for his next shift where he was arrested.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't teach stupid, right?
I just can't believe how you thought, I was on the schedule.
Do we not have a Shake Shack here in Nebraska?
We do
right?
not. We do not.
Have you had it before?
I have had it. I think there's one down in Kansas City. It's pretty good.
Dude, it's so good.
So good.
They use potato buns, like potato. So the buns they use is potato starch or whatever. Those things, man, they keep the hinge on the potato bun. That's what I appreciate about Shake Shack. So most places, the buns are separated, right? There's a bottom bun and a top bun. But with Shake Shack, they use these kind of fluffier potato buns. and they keep the hinge of the potato bun together, right? So it's not two pieces of bread, it's one piece of bread. So they keep the hinge on, they toast it, they bring it back, and then they close it. And so it's almost like the hinge of the potato bun like holds in the juices you might lose from a very juicy burger, especially because they're smashing they're smashing their burgers on the show. So or on the griddle. So it's like one of those things where I think it's genius, because I will say there's nothing worse than, I mean, there are things worse than this, but like from just a straight up consuming perspective, when I'm eating a burger and it's too juicy, and then I get to the final bite and it's almost like the bread is sticking on to the like juicy burger, and it's like sloppy, and it's almost like the type of stuff you see Joey Chestnut eat when he dips a hot dog in during the Nathan's famous hot dogs competition. I don't like that juicy burger, like it just get me out of here. Where Shake Shack, they keep that hinge on, and it's almost like that when you bite into that hinge, it's like an explosion of
good.
I would
stuff.
do a Shack burger with fries and a chocolate milkshake so quickly. And if you call me Matt McLove Handles, you're totally right. I am an absolute fatty for Shake Shack. I do not care. I do not count calories when I'm at Shake Shack. There's some people who are like, oh, if you got a Shake Shack, just ask for no cheese and no this. Screw that.
No.
If I'm going to a burger place, I'm going to be a glutton. A major glutton.
Myself.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here. Let's continue to talk a little football here. Some Husker football, along with some other funny things going around across sports here on Middays. Matt. So this was making the rounds yesterday from Max Olson, who is a regular guest here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network with Happer and Schaefer. So this article got dropped yesterday. We didn't talk about it, but I know a couple of shows did, where he broke down the spending per position in college football. He did this last year, Max did, and so it's a very good for him and just kind of making this a regular article. It was very well written, especially a lot of the excerpts that came from coaches and executives in the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, kind of breaking down, what are the average costs per position across college sports. And so, the quarterback was first. 1 to 3 million is what he determined was the average cost for a quarterback. Offensive tackle and defensive end, they were second. Tackle ranging from anywhere from $600,000 to $1.2 million. Defensive ends ranging from $500,000 to $1.2 million. Then you had defensive line and wide receivers tied for fourth, where wide receivers are anywhere from $400,000 to $1 million. D-line are $500,000 to $1 million. And then you had after that tied for sixth were cornerbacks and safeties, which was very interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. They range from $400,000 to $900,000 and safeties from $300,000 to $900,000. Tied for eighth were both guards and running backs. $300,000 to $800,000 for running backs, $400,000 to $800,000 for guards. And then coming in at the 10th spot were both middle linebackers and outside linebackers from $300,000 to $700,000. 11th was tight ends, $300,000 to $600,000, and 12th were finally centers that were around $500,000. There were some very interesting excerpts that came from here in terms of wide receivers, right? You had different schools talking about different strategies in terms of what do we want to pay our wide receiver 1 versus our wide receiver 2 or our wide receiver 3? Do we go in for having a number 1 option at, $1 million? And then do we follow that up by having, our wide receiver 2 at a $600,000 range and then our number 3 at a $600,000 range? Maybe we want to spend more at the position. Maybe we want to have the wide receiver 3 be $600,000 or wide receiver 2 be $600,000. Some schools thought, hey, what if we just get 3 $700,000 wide receivers, right? And so it was a variance in terms of the strategy. Max does a great job breaking down the same thing with running backs. If you want an elite running back, you're going to have to get from $750,000 to $1 million. But some schools, and I'll read this from Max, but the pay range for running backs is largely tied to offensive philosophy. And there are still a lot of teams that would rather move forward with a starting running back making $500,000 and their number 2 option closer to $300,000. So, hey, instead of spending big on one running back and, paying $1 million, what if we get a number 2 or, number 1 guy is 500 and our number 2 guy is 300. And so this is the strategy, right? This is, college teams having to decide based on our coaching, based on our personnel, based on our league, based on the weather, right? Like, how do we want to play? How do we want to play against other teams? You have to put all of these kind of different thoughts and ideas together along with your just own personal philosophies and decide, where do I want to spend my money? And so I think that, different coaches, different programs are going to have differing opinions in terms of where do they think are most valuable. But there's little like cheat codes in here, right? That like Max kind of mentions in terms of, so tackles range from $600,000 to $1.2 million, and guards and centers range from $400,000 to $800,000. And they kind of talk about like there are some tackles that they get to kind of pick their number, right? One agent said if he's representing a tackle, he goes, I'm always asking for $1 million. If you want to be in the game, you've got to be in that range. Olson continues, given those high standards, LSU's Jordan Seaton was a bit of a unicorn in this year's transfer portal cycle. You almost never saw first-round talent hit the portal ahead of his junior season. Personnel staffers agreed that Seaton could pretty much name his price and easily earned well beyond $2 million, which is way above the average $1.2 million price. And there's some of those unicorns like that. But Olson adds, teams looking at the group of 6 level for an experienced tackle didn't get a big discount. For key targets, they range between $800,000 to $900,000, but even those deals could quickly get into the 7 figures if enough teams entered the mix. But when I talk about little cheat codes, right? is that they found, and Olsen found, that one agent's theory for the reduced prices on guards and guards and centers compared to tackles is that teams are having an easier time finding group of 6 and FCS offensive linemen with the size and skills to play inside. Nearly 120 linemen transferred up for Power 4 opportunities this offseason. And so what Olsen is kind of describing there, which is why I find this article fascinating, is, if you're a guy like Pat Stewart, or if you're, a general manager within college football, you have to sit back and say, okay, hey, do we go to group of 6? Do we get a group of 6 interior offensive linemen? We take the risk of him maybe not having the full measurables you might need to play in the Big Ten or the SEC. But we found that the conversion rate from G6 to P4 when it comes to football, when it comes to interior offensive linemen, are pretty high. You know what? Let's go a little cheaper here on this G6 offensive lineman instead of getting this P4 interior offensive lineman, and let's splurge a little bit more on other needs that we might have, or let's splurge a little bit more on our offensive tackle, right? Hey, you can only get Jordan Seaton in this G6 guard, or you could get this P4 guard and this P4 tackle. The P4 tackle, though, way worse than Jordan Seaton, right? And those are just kind of like strategies you can work through. And so, this is kind of the reality now, right, of where you're at in college football, where these ranges are pretty big, man. Like, here's a great quote. So edge rushers range from $500,000 to $1.2 million. But one agent added Dylan Stewart, the defensive end out of South Carolina, who a lot of people are very excited for, definitely a potential first-round pick in next year's draft. One agent said, for Dylan Stewart, the limit does not exist in terms of what you might pay him to be your defensive end for next season. And so one agent said in Olsen's article that the ceiling is closer to $1.5 million for edge rushers. And so a lot of this, right, is very comparative to what you do in the NFL in terms of each position has value, and each position, there's kind of a cap in terms of, well, if you spend more than this, you're going to have to give up elsewhere. And it is startling to me, Jake, how similar the NFL market seems to work out between the college football market. So number one in college football was quarterback. Number one average salary in the NFL was quarterback. Number two average salary in college football is tackle. Number two is tackle in the NFL. The third highest in college football was D-end. That matches up with the NFL. Fourth highest in college football is wide receiver. Also matches with the NFL. Now, here's where it differs. The fifth highest in the NFL is guards. It's actually the same. The fifth highest in the NFL is defensive line. Fifth highest in college football, D-line. Then sixth highest offensive guards for of the NFL. This is where it differs. The sixth highest is cornerbacks and safeties in college football. And so then after that in college football, it's guards. After that in the NFL is what was before in college football, cornerbacks and safeties. They just flop that over. And so you kind of go down the list and everything kind of matches up. Like how the NFL values things and how college football values things is a little bit different. But what is interesting is that the eighth highest paid position in college football is running back. And let me do my math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th is running back in the NFL. But that's if you take average salary. If you take average starter salary for the NFL, it's actually 9th in the NFL for running backs compared to 8th for running backs in college football. So the markets kind of mirror each other in a way, which is quite fascinating. Now, the one thing that is different is that the variance between cornerbacks and safeties in the NFL. Cornerbacks have the 6th highest average for starters in terms of pay. Safeties have the 10th highest average in pay for the NFL. So there's 4 spots that separate cornerbacks and safeties. There's actually no spots that separate cornerbacks and safeties in college football. It actually is written here in Olsen's article that they're finding that the scarcity of the safety market in college sports is actually propping up the safety market, allowing them to make as much as corners. And in some cases that you have defenses that are so predicated on the strength of the safety in college football that they're going ahead and that's propping up the market for safety. So, one of the things here for me in terms of looking at all these numbers and seeing these markets kind of mirror each other is, let's compare this to the Huskers, right? And I think Nebraska does some things that NFL teams do, and Nebraska does some things that are very much kind of sneaky under the radar, predicated on development. Here's what I mean by that, right? Look at Nebraska's cornerback position. So cornerbacks in the portal are averaging 400,000 to 900,000. Okay. Well, you look at the history of what Nebraska has done in their cornerback room. They haven't really done the monster splash top corner move, right? Bly Hill was not playing Power 5 football. Andrew Marshall, who's going to be their number one corner, was not playing Power 5 football. They got Donovan Jones from high school. They get Jeremiah Charles, who barely played football in high school. They got him. They developed him for a couple of years. He's going to play for him. The guy that Jeremiah is competing with, Victor Evans, they got him from FIU. They didn't have to spend a big bag to get a guy like that. Look at Danny Odom, another guy potentially competing for that cornerback spot. They got him from high school, right? Now, that might have taken a bit of a bag because Odom was a 5-star in some cases. But Nebraska has been able to kind of go under the radar when it comes to getting guys from the portal, when it comes to the cornerback position. Sierra Wright, that wasn't this flashy splash corner. They got him super late in the transfer portal process from USC for him to come over. And so you look at that. All right, well, Nebraska hasn't spent a whole lot of money on corners. Where have they been able to splurge a little bit and push their chips in the middle? Well, obviously the quarterback position. And, I think the wide receiver position, too, is something that Nebraska kind of yearly under Matt Rule has been able to get got. Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nair, Dane Keat, Isaiah Hunter. You add in Quasi Gilmer, right? Like they brought in, Billy Kemp was a guy that, they brought like these are guys that they've been pretty consistently been able to invest to and bring in. And unfortunately for Nebraska, their advantages that they found at the cornerback position, they weren't necessarily able to cash in terms of getting top guys at the wide receiver position that are getting drafted and, being massive game breakers on that part of the ball. Look at the quarterback position, right? They spent a lot of money on quarterback last year to get very, very average play. And so that's some of those things where you look at it like, hey, Nebraska's been able to, produce, been able to spend their money in a way where it gives them advantage at the cornerback spot, even the safety spot, right? Guthrie, Singleton, now you got guys like Caleb Benning, who you're hoping to come up and develop. Like they haven't had to splurge a whole lot, right? Omar Brown didn't cost a lot coming out of, Northern Iowa. Jameer Khan, who's a guy that they're looking to potentially play a lot this year. He came from Southern Illinois. They didn't have to, cough up a big bag for that. And so they've been able, and, you got to give Addison Williams a ton of credit for allowing them to do that, to not necessarily monetarily invest a ton of the transfer portal when it comes to that secondary, right, by getting guys from smaller schools, while also, though, they have to do a better job at, hey, we're going to spend big for a DN, if we're going to spend big for a tackle, if we're going to spend big for multiple wide receivers, go ahead and if we're going to pay a lot for a quarterback to be our QB, to be our gunslinger, you got to cash in on that stuff. So it's funny to kind of look at these numbers and understand, hey, we kind of, we don't have the full scale, right? We don't have all the numbers in front of us in terms of what Nebraska has spent on certain players, but we have an idea of where did these guys come from, what the competition was, did he get them from a smaller school versus did he get them from a big school, all that type of stuff. So I think here it's, for me though, like the running back conversation in the NFL makes a ton of sense to me in terms of why teams going to spend a lot, because you are getting the cream of the crop when it comes to running backs coming from college ball to the NFL. Every guy that is up to be drafted as a running back to the NFL, was the best, one of the 3 best running backs in their conference, one of the top guys in the country, right? The talent there at running back when, you only have 32 teams and you're drafting X amount of them every year, like the crop of talent that you have coming from college football relative to the amount of spots you have in the NFL, it's abundant, right? You can have a 5th-round pick in Emmett Johnson, and they end up being pretty good. You can have a 7th-round pick in Isaiah Pacheco. He ends up being pretty good. You can have a 7th-round pick in Kyle Monungai. He ends up being pretty good. You can, spend a little bit later because those guys are super talented. Those guys are still some of the best running backs in the country, where the amount of running back talent in comparison to how many teams you have in college football, that doesn't match up, right? There's not like the comparison between, which is why I think it's interesting that the running back market in the NFL and the running back market in college football are similar, because it's not the same equation. You have a lot of running back talent for very few spots in the NFL, where you have a ton of spots across college football that you have to fill. And so I don't know. For me, I feel like there's a little bit more of a value, in having spent more money in the running back room and making a big splash, because that if you hand the guy off to this guy, every time he touches the ball, you have an opportunity for something very exciting to happen. We saw it last year with Emmett Johnson at Nebraska. I wonder if, how does that market evolve, if it ever evolves for college sports? Does it continue to mirror the NFL market? But I just think the discrepancies in terms of there is a discrepancy in terms of running back talent versus amount of spots in college, in terms of running back talent versus the amount of spots in the NFL. Clearly, though, there's people disagree with me, because once again, running back, a very important position that touches the ball a lot in the offense, is tied 8th for highest paid position in college football, where, how much different would you look at this Nebraska football offense if they had an Ahmad Hardy? How much different would you look at this Nebraska football offense if they had a Kawan Lacey, if they had an Antoine Raymond, if they had, one of those top dudes carrying the football for him? You probably think very differently, in terms of, hey, you can give this ball to this guy at any moment in time and something quite incredible can happen. But Nebraska, a lot like the NFL market, has decided, we're going to go RB by committee. We're not going to invest monetarily a ton of money into this room. While also, though, they're investing a lot from a coaching perspective into that room. So great article by Max Olson. I love comparing and contrast of the two in terms of what are you spending here versus where you're spending there. All right. We'll talk a little bit more about football today. I'll talk about some training camps, some updates across the NFL, along with Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy and the 2023 Michigan draft class from that national championship team that has not produced the results that you would think. And there's probably a reason for that. We talk about that and more coming up next here on Middays with Matt on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network.
So Kyler Murray went ahead and got benched the other day, yesterday. Kyler Murray is now the starter. J.J. McCarthy got benched. Now the quarterback, too, for the Minnesota Vikings. I decided to go ahead and find out what happened to some of the Michigan Wolverines who got drafted off of the 2023 national championship team for Michigan. So Michigan had over double digits in terms of how many people ended up getting drafted from that 2023 roster. They had 10 guys get drafted. Now, 3 of them never even made training like NFL rosters after they got drafted. Now, I went through some of the top draft picks in terms of how they've ended up having careers. So J.J. McCarthy, obviously, he was the number 10 overall pick for that Michigan 2024 draft class. He gets benched yesterday. His career, whether or not he's going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL, in jeopardy. Chris Jenkins, who got drafted defensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. He played last season out of 127 eligible defensive tackles in the PFF grade system. Would you like to guess where Chris Jenkins ranked, Mr. Jake Janasek?
Chris Jenkins ranked?
Where did he rank in PFF grade amongst 112 qualified defensive linemen?
98.
You're not that far off. He ranked 84th.
84th.
84th out of 112 eligible graded defensive linemen in the NFL. Now you go ahead and you look, all right, so Chris Jenkins going to work out. How about Mike Samerskill, right? Mike Samerskill, he was a hell of a player, cornerback for the Michigan Wolverines. I believe he was the captain of that 2023 team, if I'm not mistaken. Out of 127 was Chris Jenkins' ranking. So out of 112 cornerbacks graded in Pro Football Focus last year, where do you think?
I'm going to say he was low. I'm going to say 102.
He was 94th.
94th?
Still not good. Out of 112. So Chris Jenkins was 84th out of 127. Samerskill was 84th out of 112. They had bad years last season. Junior Colson, he was drafted by the Los Angeles Chargers with the 69th pick. He didn't play last year. He was put on injured reserve. Roman Wilson, he went ahead. He got drafted by the Steelers, the 84th pick in 2024. In Roman Wilson's career, he has 14 games played and 166 receiving yards in his career after being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 84th pick. The 85th pick was taken by the Cleveland Browns, and they drafted Zach Zinter, who in his 2 seasons in the NFL has only played 22 games. He only played 5 games last season. He didn't even start a game last year for the Cleveland Browns. The only guys who have had somewhat successful careers for Michigan has been A.J. Barner, who is playing really well for the Seattle Seahawks, and Blake Corum, who was taken with the 83rd pick by the Los Angeles Rams, and in his 3rd year, finally seems like he is ready to take a bigger role. But his first 2 seasons were incredibly limited by his just not only just production, but his opportunities. And Corum was the stud on that Michigan Wolverine roster. And yet, drafted with the 84th pick, he's played in 34 games. He's only started 1 game. And in his 2 seasons with the Rams, he's carried for a total of 953 yards and has only now in his career has averaged 4.7 yards per attempt. He played a lot better last year after being basically a 0 in his rookie season. And, he seems like a guy who has some promise in terms of potentially playing at a high level eventually in his career. But there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players for the Michigan Wolverines, 9 players who were drafted in the top 172 picks of the NFL draft in 2024. Only 2 of those 9 players ended up having some sort of successful career. Now,
that's crazy.
The book isn't closed on Samerskill. It's not closed on Jenkins. Colson could come back and, play well. And, Wilson, maybe this is the year he figures it out, in the NFL and all that type of stuff. Like, the book isn't necessarily closed on these guys. And like Wilson, he's still playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's still on the roster. Like all that stuff can still figure it out. But I find it very interesting that team was a dominant team in the 2023 season. That team was a dominant team to win the national championship. They beat Alabama. They beat Washington. They did what they needed to do. And yet a lot of the guys who ended up either getting drafted from that team or were signed as undrafted free agents ended up being very little, if anything, in the NFL, with Sanders still and McCarthy being some pretty big draft picks and pretty good investments from their teams and end up not panning out whatsoever so far. So I wonder why, these guys had failed evaluations. It's almost as if for a big majority of their career, they might have known whether the offense or the defense was, running this or running that, or they might have known that the offense was passing the ball or running the ball. I wonder why. It's almost as if they might have known what the opponent was going to do before the opponent even knew it. Maybe that's why these guys ended up being one of the most lackluster draft classes from an entire school that you have seen in quite some time. And that lackluster draft class ended up winning a national championship. Very interesting. Now, I'm not saying it has everything to do with the sign stealing scandal. I'm not saying that at all. Could be to do with, a bad luck positioning, right? Could be due with, personnel. Could have to do with being buried on the depth chart. It could be, there's a lot of variables that play into NFL careers not working out. But I'd just like to mention, very curious that the most recent national champion to be accused and then found of cheating in their era of college football, a lot of those players ended up not panning out whatsoever. And it's one of those things where it's just kind of eye-opening. Now, I'll give you an eye-opening quote here from Kevin O'Connell. Now, Kevin O'Connell is a very good coach. I very much like him. Even though I hate the fact that he is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, who are in my favorite team's division in the NFC North. And Kevin O'Connell in the Rich Eisen show, I think it was last fall, said this in terms of quarterbacks. Kevin O'Connell said, quote, "I believe organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations." That's what Kevin O'Connell said. And I don't think he's wrong in any way, shape, or form, right? Especially if you look at the most recent history of what has happened with kind of rejuvenation projects for NFL quarterbacks over the last couple of years. Baker Mayfield was left to rot from Cleveland. It was over. It was done. They didn't want him anymore. They moved on. They made the Deshaun Watson deal. He then goes to Carolina. Does not work out. Gets cut by Carolina. Goes to LA. Plays that incredible game-winning drive, barely knew the playbook. That time that he spent with Sean McVay instilled the confidence he needed to eventually Tampa took a shot on him, right? Gets with Dave Canales, goes ahead, has an incredible season. His offensive coordinator goes from Dave Canales, who's now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, to Liam Cohen. They have a great season with Baker Mayfield, who's making $30 million a year. It's a hell of a contract for the Buccaneers. It's a steal when it comes to the quality of play from quarterback that Baker was providing to them. Cohen then goes to Jacksonville. Being Baker Mayfield's offensive coordinator for 2 years was an incredible way to get a head coaching job in the NFL. And both those guys ended up making the playoffs as head coaches last year. And then, is the next offensive coordinator not so great? Doesn't have the best season, but you get the point. Baker goes ahead, fails with Cleveland, a historically bad franchise, fails with Carolina ever since they made that Super Bowl those years ago. They've never been able to find that mojo again, and instead goes to LA, where they're coming off of a Super Bowl, right? And he goes and he finds his confidence with Sean McVay. He then goes to Tampa Bay, who aren't that far off from winning a Super Bowl and still have some of those pieces from that Super Bowl team that was very important to winning Tom Brady his 7th title, right? He goes there, he finds success. Look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold left out to rot by the New York Jets. Like Baker, goes to the Carolina Panthers, doesn't work out, career over. Spends 1 year in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, also a part of that offensive mind tree, just to go to Minnesota to have success with Sean McVay, to then go to Seattle, wins a Super Bowl with Clint Kubiak, who's now a head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. And so we've seen the last 2 seasons that, there are teams who thought, multiple teams, might I add, who thought that Baker would never be the guy, who thought that Darnold would never be the guy. And those teams gave up on him, and what was their trash ended up being Seattle Seahawk treasure, ended up being Tampa Bay Buccaneer treasure. And O'Connell was a massive part of that. And so henceforth, the quote, I believe organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. Until he kind of does what he claimed. Now, here's the thing. It's a great debate. Who failed who? Did McCarthy fail Minnesota, or has Minnesota failed McCarthy? And I think it's a bad look for O'Connell to claim, hey, organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. I think it's a bad look for him to say that and then to bench J.J. McCarthy 11 games or 10 games rather into his NFL career. I think it's not the best optic for KOC to kind of stand on this soapbox and say organizations are giving up on QBs too early, and look at what I did with Sam Darnold and how I didn't give up on him and I gave him the tools to be great. I don't think it's a good look for those things to happen in the way that they did. But in KOC's defense, who failed who, right? Like, am I really going to stand here and say that Minnesota failed to build a roster around J.J. McCarthy? Am I really going to sit up here and stand up and say that having Justin Jefferson as your number 1 wide receiver isn't a good enough weapon for J.J. McCarthy? Am I going to stand up here and say that having the Minnesota Vikings have the number 4 best pass blocking PFF rating in the NFL isn't good enough for J.J. McCarthy? And am I going to stand up here and say that the Minnesota Vikings having the number 1 or having a very good run block rate, the 13th highest run block rating in the NFL last year, that's not good enough for J.J. McCarthy to succeed? I don't know, man. I think Minnesota gave him the tools. I think Minnesota gave him TJ Hawkinson. I think Minnesota gave him Aaron Jones. I think Minnesota gave him Justin Jefferson. Minnesota gave J.J. McCarthy a great offensive coordinator and a great play caller. The offensive line, was it great? No. Was it good enough? Absolutely. Was it like Tennessee, who they were letting Cam Ward get sacked all over the football field year in and year out? Was it good enough for him to be successful? Absolutely. Is 11 games enough, though? Is 11 games enough to evaluate and fully know that a quarterback can be what you think they can be?
It's a good sample size, I feel. Especially
I don't know.
for J.J. McCarthy with that, but I mean, it was just his first year in the NFL, so it's really hard to take it from there. I mean,
here's the classic. You want the classic argument against 11 being enough?
What?
The classic argument is Peyton Manning. Because when he was 22 in 1998, Peyton Manning threw for 28 interceptions.
Still the most right now, isn't it?
He had, so it's still the most. In his first 4 seasons of playing quarterback in the NFL, Peyton Manning threw for 81 interceptions in his first 4 seasons. Now, granted, he threw for 111 touchdowns as well in those first 4 seasons, capped off by having 33 in 2000. But I mean, only one time in Manning's career did he have an interception mark lower than 9, right? But for Peyton, when he was throwing the ball 340 times a year, 10 interceptions is actually a pretty decent number. But early on in his career, 28, 15, 15, 23. I don't know, man. Like, Peyton Manning throws 28 interceptions in this era of the NFL in his first season. I mean, he's an incredible, now it's a little bit different, right? Because Peyton was the top draft pick. He was an incredible draft prospect, right? 1997, awesome for Tennessee. Like, we look at Peyton Manning in a way higher regard than we did JJ McCarthy coming out of Michigan, right? That's different, right? And so the quality of prospect definitely does give you a little bit less or a little bit more leeway. And so naturally we would give Peyton Manning more leeway than we would JJ McCarthy. That's not even a conversation or debate. But I don't know, to say 11 games is enough to just say, hey, we're done with you. At the same time, if you're KOC, you can go ahead and say, what else do you want, brother? We know I'm good at my job. Yeah. We know that I know how to call plays. You got Justin Jefferson. He's one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL, which I don't think enough has been said about how professional Justin Jefferson has been through this entire endeavor. I mean, I was watching, because I watch the teams in my division a lot. I was watching the Minnesota Vikings play plenty of football. I'd see JJ McCarthy stink it up, just absolutely be terrible for the Minnesota Vikings, miss, Justin Jefferson on plenty of, routes down the field and whatnot. And then he goes up and he daps up Justin Jefferson and say, oh, I'm good. Oh, I got you. Oh, this, oh, that. Like, dude, get out of here. Why are you dapping me up? Throw the ball on time. Throw the ball on target. He had every right to be a diva, every right to be a prima donna, every right to flip out like a bunch of other wide receivers we've seen across the NFL flip out, and he didn't. I don't think he gets enough credit for it. But it's incredible how the turntables, where KOC is a part of one of the best turnarounds we've seen a quarterback have in their professional career. And yet he goes, hey, we give up on quarterbacks too early. Just for him after 10 games in the NFL to say, you know what, JJ, we're good with you. We're going to go with the quarterback who the Cardinals were totally fine getting rid of in order for Jacoby Brissett to be their starter this year. That's the quarterback we're going to go with. Now, I understand them making the decision early. Kyler needs a number one guy reps. He needs to learn the offense. That's not going to get any better. That, if he's splitting reps with JJ McCarthy in a presumed quarterback battle, right? If you are already of the belief that McCarthy's got the higher ceiling for this offense in order for them to be successful next season, then if that's in your mind and you don't think JJ having better practices than Kyler, which, by the way, that's what the news was coming out of Minnesota, if that's what your belief is already and nothing is going to change that from happening, I don't blame them making the decision before they even play a preseason game to say, no, this guy's got to get reps. Be interesting to see how the rest of the preseason plays out for the Vikings and what that beginning of the year is going to look at for Minnesota, a team that is talented enough to definitely make the playoffs next season in the NFL. All righty, we'll touch on some fun topics coming up next. Somebody stealing from Phil Steele. Tony Romo's career with CBS might be done. We'll see. The White Sox get an incredible baseball promotion yesterday, and Paul Skeens has another puzzling start. All that and more here on Middays with Matt on the 1620 Zone Radio Network. With J.J. McCarthy being benched, we now are back on the whole, does the NFL have a quarterback development problem? Which Sam Block at the Block Spot on Twitter writes, J.J. McCarthy benched. Justin Fields benched. Zach Wilson benched. Dylan Gabriel benched. Anthony Richardson bench. Pickett bench. Lance bench. Jones bench. Will Levis bench. The NFL has a quarterback development problem. I would like to mention that Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams all have been very successful already in their career. And we're all in the same draft class. 4 of those 6 guys ended up being pretty good already. I think May, Nix, and Williams, you can mark down as they're probably going to be pretty damn good for a while. And additionally, you know, Jaden Daniels, if he can stay healthy, will be very good for an extended period of time as well, if he can stay healthy, which is a big if. But that's not a development issue as much as that just is his body holding up issue. I mean, I understand the tweet, but I could point out to you that some of these guys had some pretty clear flaws that they weren't able to get around. First off, like Trey Lance was a major project that literally has now been on multiple teams who have not been able to figure out how to get this guy better at football. Anthony Richardson was a major project that they needed to get that guy ready to play. And he barely played any football before he got to the NFL. And yeah, it didn't work out. Maybe he just wasn't good enough. Dylan Gabriel wasn't a top pick. You know, J.J. McCarthy was the 5th quarterback taken in this draft. Like, these guys had some problems, heading into their draft classes. And we've seen plenty of guys who, get drafted. I mean, Dak Prescott was a mid-round draft pick. Like, what are we doing? Like, I understand the sentiment that if you want to go ahead and use some historical data to say, hey, the percentage of bust now compared to then, okay, I'll believe those numbers. But I think if you're just going off of, hey, these X amount of quarterbacks got benched, well, I can dish out a couple of you who've ended up developing pretty damn well. And, I think it's funny to be like, oh, the NFL's got a development problem. Well, 2 guys that Sam Block probably would have been on that list a couple of years ago were Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And they've developed just fine into quarterbacks who are very viable in the NFL. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that it isn't alarming that there are some guys who we thought were a lot of promise, ended up not becoming who you thought they would. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of quarterbacks on this list. I'm also not going to act as if nobody's been able to be good over the last couple of years when it comes to quarterback play in the NFL. I mean, talk about the NFL having a quarterback development problem. I think Bryce Young has developed incredibly well. Stibbs goes, someone got their Mina Kimes screen notification. Absolutely, I did. It was a great Mina staff, but it's already true. It's out there. Bryce Young has developed so well from where he got to the NFL to where he is now, right? Dave Canales has done a phenomenal job getting him to the point where they picked up his 5th-year option, something you didn't think they were going to do after year 1. So I once again, I don't think it's necessarily a overarching, massive blanketed issue that the NFL has developing quarterbacks. I just think some of these guys aren't good enough. I don't think J.J. McCarthy was good enough. We had a text that came in about J.J. McCarthy, him being benched in favor for Kyler Murray. From the 402 writes, maybe what McCarthy needs is more time to sit, watch, and learn. Maybe the Vikings are doing right by him, bringing in someone in some competition and letting him earn his spot. And since he lost, he can now learn from watching. The one thing I'll say I disagree with that text in terms of, hey, maybe JJ needs time to watch. What did he do year 1? Watch. He had a whole year to be in a meeting room to understand how quarterbacks, how not just a quarterback, a Super Bowl, and now Super Bowl winning quarterback in Sam Darnold, how he prepares, how he reads defenses. He had a whole year to learn the install, to learn the ins, the outs of the offense when it comes to Kevin O'Connell and how they run things in Minnesota, and then had another offseason to put that to work in training camp just for him to prove that, man, it's a struggle for him to stay healthy when it comes to playing quarterback in the NFL level. Missed 7 games last year, right? Had a hand injury, had an ankle injury, had a concussion problem. There are multiple injuries that guy suffered throughout the entire year after losing an entire year to an injury that he suffered in the preseason. So I don't know if I fully agree with McCarthy needs time to sit. I do question, though, is 10 games enough to fully know what you got in that guy, especially if the reports are true, which once again, I'm not there at Minnesota Viking training camp, but the reports are true that he was looking pretty damn good in some of their reps and what they were doing. So we got some, not necessarily breaking news, but just announced from Robin Washit that Jamarcus Lawrence has been joins the eligibility lawsuit in California to potentially earn a fifth year of eligibility to play with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He wasn't initially a part of the lawsuit. Now he is in California, according to Robin Washit. All right, let's go ahead, take a break, and we got some more things to get here on Middays with Matt. Had some pretty interesting college basketball news today. Brody Robinson, the transfer from Oakland, joining the Creighton Blue Jays today. He had 17 points per game with Oakland last season, 17.6 points per game. We got to give him credit. 17.6 might as well be 18 points per game, and 6.7 assists last season with Oakland, 11th nationally in the country. And then just recently, Marcus Lawrence joining a eligibility case to get his 5th year of eligibility, as he is a part of the class of 2022 that expended his eligibility under the old rules, but he's joining a lawsuit to get one more year of eligibility to play next season, where the Huskers have left one open roster spot. And for him to potentially join. So it could be a pretty big addition for Nebraska basketball if you can get J-Law back into the fold. Obviously, we saw open practice yesterday from the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and some of the videos that people were getting really fired up about was it looked like the quarterbacks were practicing the option. Everyone was freaking out. Oh my God, the option's back. The speed option's back. Holy crap. It's the Nebraska I know and love. Which obviously, I mean, I don't know if we expected the option, but there definitely was an expectation, and is an expectation that will continue to be held, that, you know, the Huskers are going to run a lot more with Anthony Calandria after he ran for 649 yards last season for UNLV, that, you know, the quarterback run game once again is going to be a point of emphasis for Nebraska, like it was a point of emphasis under Matt Rule in year one, the only year he did not have Dylan Raiola, with Jeff Sims, and then later Heinrich Harburg, where they very much, you know, wanted to, you know, they brought Sims in because they wanted to run the ball with the quarterback, and they've brought Calandria in because that's what they want to do. So people got very excited over seeing some option runs being practiced.
I still think the clip's like a nothing burger, though. They did that at the opening practice because they know the fans would go crazy.
We'll see. I mean, you can make
you
can make the idea, you know, you can make the argument that all of this is a nothing burger before they play the first couple games of the season, which is fine. But all this to lead into, though, that Nebraska football just released an hour ago on Twitter that scrimmage. They released scrimmage tape or not scrimmage tape, rather, their full padded practice tape from practice. Some of it includes them running plays, you know, having a live action period. There is a touchdown that's thrown from Anthony Calandria in the back of the end zone, in which Calandria is under center, and he's under center. He's doing some play action. And Tim Verghese had a great tweet. He goes, some under center play action here, like we discussed last week with Adam Carricker. And so it made me think, Tim inspired me here to go and think, okay, well, you know, how often did Nebraska football run play action last season? And how much success did they typically have running play action last year with Dylan Raiola? Now, very notably and famously, Dylan Raiola and Anthony Calandria do not move at the same rate. Calandria much faster than Dylan Raiola. But last season, 34% of Nebraska's dropbacks were play action passes. They had 100 dropbacks and 88 passing attempts with play action. They completed 59 of them. They had a 67% completion percentage for 802 yards and 9.1 yards per attempt, with 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions with play action passes last season. That's Nebraska. So I was curious. I go, okay, under center play action pass, Anthony Calandria, interesting stuff. You know, what was Calandria's successful play action pass? And I remember watching his tape from UNLV and him rolling right, and always impressed with, you know, want to see the type of athlete a quarterback is. Watch how they throw on the run. How hard is that throw and how fast are they running? And I was always taken aback by, you know, Calandria sprints out there. I mean, he moves quick to the outside to give himself as much room as possible to not be put under pressure. And he's got I'll tell you this right now about Ant. He's got a rocket arm. I mean, he's got a really, really good arm. And so for UNLV last season, they ran play action passes 38% of the time, 4 percentage points higher than Nebraska. They had 139 play action pass attempts, 97 completions with play action passes. They had a 69.8 completion percentage with play action passes. And listen to this: 1,601 yards off of play action passes, 11.5 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns, and 1 interception on play action passes last season for Anthony Calandria. His play action passing grade was 89.4.
Dang. It's good.
Dylan Raiola's play action passing grade 71.8. Calandria had a grade that was 17 points higher than Raiola on play action passes. He threw for nearly double the amount that Dylan did in PA passes, along with throwing 2 yards down the field further in yards per attempt with 5 more touchdowns and 2 less interceptions. So this, idea, seeing him doing some play action passes in practice, we knew that this was, obviously, I think we have it'll be interesting to see. I think we have an idea of what Dana's offense is going to be, and I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we saw last year in regard to, quick passes, RPOs, screens, PA passes. Like I think they'll be able to. They're going to do a lot of that stuff with Ant, and I think they're going to be able to do it more effectively because he's faster and he's more athletic than Dylan. But that is something to keep an eye out for. It's where at UNLV he excelled at doing that stuff. He excelled at throwing on the run. He could throw it deep down the field. And we talked about Calandria's deep ball passing, I think a week and a half ago, in regard to the fact that, he hucked it deep a pretty good amount. And, his passing percentage down the field, in vanilla number 44% completion percentage doesn't sound all that great, but in comparison to the rest of the country, it's actually not that bad at all. And he was more accurate and more willing to throw the ball down the field more than Raiola was last year. So very interesting stuff. Great stuff from Tim Verghese pointing that stuff out. Hey, look, they're running some under center play action passes. That's something that Calandria has had a lot of success in. It definitely will be something that they'll continue to do. I just think that with like the marriage of Calandria and Holgorsen, I just think what interests me the most about it is their ability to do more compared to last year. I think that Dylan's down the field inaccuracy, coupled with his unwillingness at times to throw the ball downfield, but also even more so coupled with his inability to move, really limited what they could do on the offensive end. And even more so, we talked about Dylan's pressure to sack ratio. It was sky high. And that's really tough when you have some offensive tackles who struggled, at times last season. And Pritchett got better as the season went on. He still gave up 5 sacks last season. And so there still definitely were times where you definitely couldn't trust the bookends of that offense. And if you can't trust the bookends with what you have under center, which is an immobile quarterback, then what, you can't really do a whole lot on offense. Where I just think Calandria's natural athletic ability and his versatility, it kind of opens up the playbook a little bit more for Dana, which is why we had the conversation of, Dana's going to be able to run more of the things that he wants to run. He's going to be able to call his offense, which is simply, Calandria's athleticism just allows them to do more. So we'll see. Just some interesting look. We're not at practice every day. We're not at training camp every day. This is in the NFL where we get eyes on these guys 24/7. A 47-second clip posted by the social media team is going to get overanalyzed and broken down. And I am going to look at 4 seconds worth of a pass and start looking at PFF numbers to see what the efficiency could potentially be for concepts like that. That's just where we are. Okay. And so we can talk about bad vibes off season all we want, but I'm hungry for it, brother. I'm hungry for it. Yeah. I want to talk about more of it. So let's talk about this. One of the best in-game promotions I've seen yesterday in all of baseball. Working with Gary, who was the assistant GM of the Myrtle Beach Miracle, the minor league baseball team in Florida. we talked a lot about promotions, right? Minor league baseball promotions and how you have to be creative in minor league baseball in order to get people through the door. And Gary always had a very fun and creative mind when it came to that stuff. And he would tell us about all the different ideas he had. And it was always fun. It was always a good segment, especially in the summer. If we didn't have a lot to talk about, like talking about Gary's assistant GM minor league days, there was always a really fun way to get through those stuff. But it also I loved it because that's just kind of a world that I've never been in, and I doubt I'll ever be in it. And we've continued to have those conversations here on Middays with Matt because we have Marty Cordero basically join us every other Monday, and we're always promoting the very fun and exciting things that the Storm Chasers are doing and the different things they're getting. They're participating in not only to get people through the door, but also help the community of Nebraska, right? And, they had the back to school night where they gave away backpacks and they encouraged people to bring supplies in order to give the kids who need it. Those promotions are great. And I have so much respect for the people of minor league baseball for what they do, because it's a tough business, man. You got to sell tickets, and it's tough to get people to come to a game where you don't necessarily have the top talent in the sport that you're providing. But, because pro sports, right? Pro ball, and Major League Baseball, you're going to get 37,000 people at Wrigley on a Friday, whether or not you're giving out a bobblehead.
Yep.
You're going to get 35,000 people at New Yankee Stadium on a Saturday night, regardless if you're giving away a Derek Jeter bobblehead or not. They don't need to be as creative or as often as maybe minor league teams do, because it's just the product sells itself. Well, what the White Sox did yesterday, where very famously the Pope of the Catholic Church is from Chicago. And despite the fact that originally people thought he was a Cubs fan and people got very excited that he was a Cubs fan, he ended up being a White Sox fan, which part of me was like, you know what? Good for the Sox. They need that, right?
They got something.
They needed that to happen. And so what was initially, so they have a Pope Leo night at White Sox Park, which is genius. Celebrate that the Pope loves the White Sox. Celebrate the fact that he might be the first Pope to ever love AJ Pierzynski. I'm just going to go on a limb and say, I don't know if Pope Francis was the biggest fan of AJ Pierzynski or even knew who he was. And so they benefited off that. The giveaway was initially supposed to be for 2,500 fans who bought special tickets, but it soon got to the point where it was like 41,000 people showed up yesterday. Okay. To the point where this is up from a Chicago Sun-Times article. Brooks Boyer, who's the White Sox executive vice president who handles this stuff, said, quote, "We'll see," when asked if he's going to make this an annual tradition. So, they gave out the Pope hats, the Pontiff hats, right? The big ones, and it had a White Sox logo on it. It was really cool. And everybody showed out. And in the fifth inning, they did the sign of peace to everybody. And so they said, hey, let's all whether or not you're Catholic or not, let's all give each other the sign of peace. If you haven't seen it on Twitter, go and look it up. Go ahead and play the clip.
We offer each other a sign of peace because we want to bring peace to the world. And I think the Pope would really love that, whether you're Catholic or not. So everybody should stand and find a new friend around you and offer each other the sign of peace.
So the video, everyone now is going around and shaking each other's hands and saying, peace be with you, peace be with you. Nice to meet you. Hi, go Sox. Yeah, Yohan Moncada sucks. What a bust. They're all saying that stuff to each other. And I saw a great tweet, coming to a Big East basketball gym near you, the sign of peace, which is absolutely funny. What if they did the sign of peace at a Creighton men's basketball game? The under 12 media timeout, all of a sudden.
Yeah, they could.
Let's all look around for each other. And I don't want to be sacrilege. I was about to say in the name of Ashworth, Kalkbrenner, McDermott, and Corver, peace be with you. But that was a super creative promotion by the White Sox to do Pope Leo night. It was funny listening to Mike Schaefer on the Happer and Schaefer show here on 1620 Zone talk about how he liked it more when the White Sox were bad at baseball compared to when they're actually somewhat entertaining. They are currently, by the way, 4 games over 500. They did lose, by the way, on Pope Leo night. I do want to point that out. Just because you have a night dedicated to the Pope of the Catholic Church does not mean your prayers will come true and you'll end up winning the baseball game. They lost 5-4 in extras, of all ways to lose, to the Cincinnati Reds, but they're currently 2.5 games above the Detroit Tigers for the lead in the AL Central. White Sox also, they would be 1 game ahead for the final wild card spot in the MLB as well. Quick little update, too. I know we're going to do balls on Friday, but the Boston Red Sox, who seemed like they couldn't lose for the entire month of July and the beginning parts of August, lost 4 in a row. They've dropped 2 to the Athletics and 2 to the Blue Jays in their last 4 games and have now fallen back into the wild card. They were, I believe, at one point 2 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays to eventually getting first place in the AL East, but their 4 straight games put them not only just in the wild card position, but also 3 full games behind the New York Yankees, where the rest of just the dreadful AL, just the Rangers are 500 with a record of 60-60 and somehow have the 3rd wild card spot, where it's just absolute Armageddon in the NL, where it's just you got very talented teams like the Phillies and Padres and Diamondbacks who are all fighting for that final wild card spot. While the good old Chicago Cubs, who picked up a pretty good win yesterday, 8-6. Ryan Zefferjon got blowed up though. He looked awful. Look, so I watched the Sunday game between the Royals and the Cubs, and that guy was throwing the ball all over the place, but was still able to get 3 outs and 4 batters. And I have never have been like, wow, that team is terrible, more than I saw the Royals. Just how do you not, like, Zefferjon was so bad. I was like, how do you not score a run here? How do you not get more batters to the plate? But yesterday against the Washington Nationals, the plucky underdog Washington Nationals, who are 3 games under 500 in the National League right now, they defeated them 8-6. So fun little bit though by the Chicago White Sox. By the way, they absolutely should make this a yearly tradition to do Pope Leo night. I mean, when will the White Sox ever have another Pope that is a fan of their team? Never. That will never happen again. That will never occur again. Also, too, I mean, how old is Pope Leo? How old is Father Bob?
Oh, I mean, he's got to be 80s.
No way. He's way younger than that.
Oh, he is?
Oh, he's way younger than that. He is.
I guess I am Catholic, so I should know, maybe.
Well, I don't know either. It doesn't say here how old he is. How old is Pope Leo? It just okay. Here it is. He's 70. He's 70. Pope Leo looks good for 70.
He does.
Pope Leo. By the way, so we were at the Nebraska Broadcaster Association Hall of Fame Awards. Congrats to the 4 Hall of Famers who were inducted: Steve Lundy, John Nicely, Ken Shimmick, and obviously Kevin Kugler, 16-20 the zone. Awesome seeing Kevin yesterday. We'll talk about it during the crossover. That's why we haven't mentioned it. I'll say this right now. All those guys look great. All those guys look incredible. Ken has an incredible tan right now. Apparently, he's on the golf course every day, is what people were telling me. He was just glowing on the stage. But John Nicely looks absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I know he has his entire career, but I was blown away with how great all 4 of those guys were. Absolutely incredible in their speeches, and it was funny. Felt like Neil Nelkin and John Bishop were in like every one of those guys' videos in terms of talking about the incredible impact they made on the Nebraska broadcasting community, as they're all Hall of Famers now. So congratulations to John, Steve, Ken, and obviously Kevin. 303 from the 303 goes, why is the Pope a fan? What do you mean, why is the Pope a fan? Father Bob was born in Chicago, in the southern part of Chicago. Grew up a White Sox fan his entire life. That was great, by the way, when back home, WGN in Chicago, they were rushing to find out whether or not the new American Pope from Chicago is a Cubs or a Sox fan. So we did, I will admit, just like a fly ball into right center field, Cubs fans jumped the gun, got all excited and all, cheering and everything. Now, here's the thing. Pope Leo did go to Villanova.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Villanova's got to have a Pope Leo night, right? Like, they have to sell. What is see, I'm a terrible Catholic. Pope hat name. The Pope's hat. It's what's it called though?
Actually,
It's a
don't know.
zucchetto.
Yeah,
Zucchetto? A zucchetto?
I would not have gotten that.
They gotta make, I'm pretty sure it's zucchetto. They gotta make, oh no, that's the skull cap. What is the it says the papal tiara? I don't know. Jake, you're a better research man than I am.
Yeah, I'm trying to look.
Anyway, regardless, Villanova's got to do a Pope Leo.
They do.
Hell of a giveaway. Hell of a time for the White Sox. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's take a break. We will talk a little bit about Paul Skeens, a little bit more of Husker football, and then we'll tell you what to watch and who we're betting on tonight with Dog of the Day here on Middays with Matt. Hey, don't forget about 1620 The Zone's golf tournament Friday, August 21st at Miracle Hill Golf Course. Starts at 8:30 with a shotgun start located. We're going to have the after party at the Phoenix after the Miracle Hill Golf Course 1620 The Zone tournament. The Phoenix is located 120th and Blondo. Registration for for a 4-player team is $400, $100 per player. You get 18 holes of golf, exclusive player gifts, complimentary food and beverages, and VIP access to our after party at the Phoenix, along with having prizes at every single hole. It's awesome. You win a bunch of tickets. You can win some pretty cool prizes, along with the fact that if your team finishes in first, second, or third in both the first flight or the second flight, you're going to get some gift cards, some Visa gift cards from anywhere from $50 to $100 per player. So it's an absolute bang for your buck. It's presented by T-Box and Cutwater. And don't forget, if you hit a hole in one on one of the par threes, you get $10,000 provided to you by Langfeld Overhead Doors. Both Joey and Nick were over at Miracle Hill setting up our connection. So we will be broadcasting live from there. Hepper and Schaefer, obviously, in the morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And Middays with Matt will be there as well from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So don't forget to go to 1620thezone.com and register your foursome today. Should be a very, very fun time. And spots are going pretty quickly, guys. They really are. They've been being taken up pretty rapidly over the last couple of days, and are a big push as we're about 9 days away from the start of the tournament. So make sure to get your teams in ASAP, because we actually only have a limited number of teams we can let in. So we got a couple more spots available. But make sure if you're going to do it today. Do it as soon as possible. Worth every penny, worth every cent. Going to be an awesome time at both Miracle Hill. 8:30 is when we'll start the golf tournament. And then after 18 holes, we'll go and party it up at the Phoenix. Should be a great time. Did you see this? Did you hear about this? Phil Steele has been wronged. He has been done wrong pretty badly, honestly, by people who we do not know whom they are yet. But we saw it on Twitter. Phil Steele tweeted out, "Warning, there are 4 different magazines on Amazon right now that are titled, quote, Phil Steele's College Football, that have nothing to do with my magazine. They are 58, 70, 43, and 93 pages and have nothing," in all caps he writes, "nothing to do with me. They are scams. My magazine is 376 pages long with 2 full pages for every team." That's what Phil Steele tweets. So The Athletic got in on it. They interviewed Phil Steele. He said Phil broke it all down, that there were all these different magazines that have red flags, like Julian Sayin, who's number 10 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's wearing the number 18. There's another red flags. They put 16 lines on a 12-team college football playoff bracket. The 2 listed authors, Russell Brivington and Gilbert Martwell, do not appear on online searches, and yet they put my name on it, Steele said incredulously. Phil was very, very upset, and even went as far as to say, "Phil Steele's like the golden standard," Steele said. "I don't want somebody thinking it's a bunch of crap," which is what they're putting out. Which is funny to me that Phil, who calls his magazine his first name, refers to his magazine, but also himself in the third person to call himself the gold standard, which, by the way, I'm here to say, just in my very humble opinion, Phil Steele is wrong. I'm actually currently holding up what the gold standard preview looks like. This guy, by the way, Brett Ciancia, going to join us every Friday here during college football season. But it was I feel bad for Phil. Terrible. F those people. Don't steal other people's work. That's so rude. I also feel bad for, other radio shows. And it mentions this in the Athletic article, where you have radio hosts that bring on Phil Steele. They interview Phil Steele. They tell their listeners, "Hey, buy Phil Steele's magazine." I'm sure some of those listeners went ahead and bought some of these phony ass magazines, wasted their money, ruined the reputation, or maybe has partially ruined the reputation of Phil Steele, and definitely could have affected the reputation of the radio host or any other person in the broadcasting medium that might have recommended their consumers and people who follow them to purchase Phil Steele's magazine to waste their money on a phony piece of crap. So I feel bad for all those people involved. Feel bad for Steele, and also F those people, man, for scamming your work. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely atrocious. It was, though. It's a hell of a quote for Phil Steele to say, Phil Steele's the gold standard. I found that to be very funny. Cracked me up just a little bit. Another update here on a story that has been developing for the last couple of weeks now. And if you're a big fan of Major League Baseball, and in particular the Pittsburgh Pirates, you might know what I'm referring to here. As yesterday, Paul Skeens pitched against the Miami Marlins, and he was pulled after 5 innings yesterday and just 65 pitches. Now, this is the second time this season Skeens had been pulled after throwing 65 pitches or less. That only happened 3 times in his first 2 seasons, where he won the Rookie of the Year and then the Cy Young Award. Here's the troubling part, though, with Paul Skeens. So Skeens is now 3-4 in his past 9 starts. He has a 5.79 ERA over that stretch. And his struggles, and I'm reading here from the ESPN article, they have been marked by an uncharacteristic dip in philosophy. So in 2024, Paul Skeens' 4-seam fastball average was 98.8 miles per hour. Last year, that 4-seam fastball velocity dipped to 98.2. And now, in 2026, his 4-seam fastball velocity has plummeted to 96.9. He has lost nearly 2 miles per hour since his rookie season to his 3rd season now in the MLB when it comes to his 4-seam fastball velocity. His sinker was 96.3 miles per hour his rookie year. His sinker is now 96.7 miles per hour velocity. Both him and his manager, Don Kelly, have said that he is currently not hurt. He's not nursing an injury. There's nothing of that sort that has to do with the fact that he has not been pitching well. But it's one of those things where, this is kind of getting to the point where it's more than, he's getting beat up. Oh, that's baseball. Oh, he's in a slump. It's one thing for, especially in that sport, to go ahead and you step up to the plate. And some guys, they just have off weeks. You just roll out of bed the wrong way, or breaks don't go your way, or, pop flies don't drop anymore. Your line drives are right at fielders, right? It just happens. That's the nature of the game. But what is concerning is when you can kind of put numbers to the nature of the game, when you can actually explain the nature of the game with legitimate statistical data that states, hey, this is part of your problem. And, it could be to the point where, hey, he's been in the league longer now. Guys have seen what Paul's stuff looks like, right? They've seen his menu of different pitches he throws, right? We have great computers now that tell you, hey, typically when he throws this, he throws that, or when he throws this, he throws that. I mean, batters are so much smarter. The approaches are smarter. When you've been in the league for a while, maybe people jump on you a little bit more. Like, all of that could be a factor. But you cannot deny the fact that this guy who was just pumping gas early in his career and was consistently throwing pitches 99, 100, 101 miles per hour and just dominating you with pure force and nasty stuff is now reaching the point where his velocity has dropped off, where, his stuff isn't going as fast, and his movement. Now, I don't know his spin rate or anything like that, but still, I mean, we're at the point where this is a dude where people were thinking about, hey, are we going to be able to back up the truck and give the Pittsburgh Pirates everything they could possibly want in order to get this guy for a couple of years control and then pay him a boatload of money to be our long-term ace? And you had Yankees fans wanting them to do that. You had Red Sox fans wanting them to do that. Like, there was, I feel like after last year, after he won the Cy Young, but the Pittsburgh Pirates are the Pittsburgh Pirates, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, it's only a matter of time before they have to give up on a guy like this because they're a small market team not willing to spend a ton of money on their roster and to put the pieces they need for him to win, right? Problem is that you ain't going to win with a 3-4 record and a 5.79 ERA in your last 9 starts. That ain't happening. So it's one thing if he was getting banged up a little bit and he was getting hit around and, that's just baseball. But the fact that you could say, no, this is a velocity issue, definitely has to start asking some questions in terms of why is this happening? And it's almost as if like if you're a Pirates fan, you're kind of like, man, I'm a little upset there isn't like an injury thing going on. Like you're a little upset that there isn't like a pinpoint, hey, he's been fighting through oblique tightness, or he's fighting through, muscles, shoulder stiffness, or, his arm kind of hurts and he's battling through because, they need, they're still in the fight or whatever it might be. Like you're almost more concerned with the fact that they're like, no, he's fine. He's actually okay. He's just throwing not as fast as he used to. And so it will see what happens here with Skeens. And maybe this is all just a big nothing burger. Like maybe this is all just something where it's like, oh, you know what? He changed his routine and he actually wasn't doing this, or he wasn't stretching this more. He's adopted a different approach and that's affected how he's throwing. Like maybe it is something legitimately fixable, but I mean, this has been kind of a developing story now. And we're at the point where after 5 innings, strategically, Don Kelly and the Pirates decided that it's best that Paul Skeens doesn't continue to pitch. That's something. Like that's like when you're getting to the point where it's like the management's like, actually, we're better off without you going to the 6th inning. That's tough. And it's a situation that people will continue to monitor. Hey, this is now the non-baseball, guy in me. But if he ends up having a struggling start to the year, is there somebody out there who's still willing to pay a very high price to say, oh, no, we'll be able to fix this? Or do they let him go another year without trying to trade for him to see if he gets back to form? It's very interesting. The fact that Paul Skeens went 2 years in playing baseball and won a Cy Young, and everybody was talking about where is he going to get traded to, would make me furious if I was a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. But what would make me more furious if I was a Pirates fan if he wasn't the ace that I thought he was going to be for a long time for my team. Just something I've found very interesting. Definitely going to continue to monitor. All right, let's go ahead, take a break. What to watch and Dog of the Day coming up next here on Middays with Matt. Alrighty. Jake, what are we watching tonight, my man?
In the Little League World Series, Ohio and Kentucky battle at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. It is an ESPN doubleheader for the MLB, where the Mariners take on the Yankees at 6 p.m. and the Rangers go to the Angels at 9 p.m. In the WNBA, Sky go to the Valkyries on CNBC. And then we got some men's soccer, the UEFA Super Cup, PSG against Aston Villa on 2 p.m. on CBS Sports Network.
Good job. Good stuff there. And what's the PSG game? Aston Villa? Is that like the final? What is that?
It's I don't know what I just saw that the UEFA Super Cup was going on. I'm not
Hell
too
yeah.
sure what it is, but it's something.
You know what? I'll
CBS
watch a
Sports
little
Network.
soccer. I'm going to tell you,
Why not?
you know what? The World Cup might have fired me up a little bit, and also too, NASCAR was so boring on Sunday. Did you watch the Iowa race? That was terrible. Then we got a week off before that. I was just like, NASCAR's got to, all right, quick little hot take here. NASCAR's got to figure out their car, man. I'm getting a little sick and tired of the lack of downforce and all this fuel saving and all this crap. All right, hot take done. Hit it.
All right, folks, let's talk right now. I'm going to kill your bookmaker. I'm going to rip his throat out. I will blow this man out. I will step on his throat until the man chokes. Let me tell you how. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. I'm on a roll.
Dude, you got to love dogs, right?
You know, a team that is in the nitty-gritty of the wild card race is the San Diego Padres, right? They are battling right now to make the playoffs, and they have won the last 2 games against the best team in the MLB, the Milwaukee Brewers. They defeated them, they lost the last 2 games to the Milwaukee Brewers by a score of 3-2 and 11-2. I think tonight they do not get swept. Robbie Ray on the mound, the San Diego Padres plus 108 to win tonight outright against the Brewers. They pull it off. Like I said, Padres are fighting for their lives. They're fighting to stay in the wild card race. They need this win tonight after losing the first 2. They'll go ahead. I say they beat Milwaukee Brewers. All right, let's go ahead. Let's do that. Wrap it up. USC and the crossover with Josh Peterson. I believe Michael Severe coming up next here on Middays or on the 1620 Zone Radio Network.